Hello and welcome to my 10,000 subscriber Q&A video celebrating this momentous milestone that I never thought in a million years I would ever reach, let alone this quickly and in this short amount of time. Once again, I would like to thank you all for your continued support for this channel and allowing me to keep doing what I do. I will be forever grateful that my channel has grown as much as it has over the past few months. As I feel like I've said a million times by now, it's just given me more motivation than I've ever had before to put my best foot forward with content for as long as I'm physically able to. So we're gonna celebrate today. Last month, I opened the floor for all of you to be able to ask any questions, and ordinarily, the turnaround for Q&A videos has been about a week, but this took, as you may have noticed, about a month to put together because I received more questions for the 10K Q&A than I received on possibly all the the previous Q&A videos combined, or if not, then at least more than any one of them. This has been an overwhelming amount of questions, but I'm gonna do my best to answer them all for you today. It's gonna be a super chill video, super relaxed, not gonna be as highly intensely edited as my regular videos are. We can all kick back, relax, and hopefully learn a little something about me in the process. I imagine you've already learned a bit about my personality through the Myers-Briggs personality test I took last month, but now I'm gonna be able to answer all your questions more specifically, to answer any specific questions that you have for me today. So it's been a long time coming. Hopefully it'll be worth the wait. Let's just not waste any more time and dive straight into our first question of the day, which is gonna be a duo question because two people asked similar questions, so I'm gonna pair them together with one person asking, are you a Marvel fan? And another person asking, what is your opinion on the actual state of the MCU? So I used to be a Marvel fan. I used to be massively invested in the MCU. It's kind of depressing to think about, actually, because I became a fan right before everything started falling apart for the series. For those who know the story, the short version is, for years, I hated the MCU, thought they were all crap, even though I never watched them. I judged them without watching them. And then Forgetful Gal got me hooked in the series because she wanted to go see Endgame together with me. She said I needed to watch all the MCU stuff before we went to go see it. So I did it in the span of a week. In the span of 7 days, I watched phases 1 through 3, and I fell in love with it almost immediately. I had experienced 11 years worth of emotion, just highs and lows in all these movies in the span of 7 days, and I loved almost every second of it. So when I went to go see Endgame, I was just an emotional wreck. Basically, I went from being against the MCU avidly to becoming a dedicated fan of it in the span of a week. And I was, for the first time ever, I was excited for the next Marvel movie to come out, which was Far From Home. And I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed Far From Home. And I was looking forward to Phase 4 whenever that happened, because obviously 2020 put a bit of a dent in Marvel's plans to produce content moving forward for the MCU. But once Phase 4 came around, that gave us Loki. Yeah. That show. Episode 1 of Loki released on June 9th, 2021, and within the first 10 minutes, I hated it. Despised it, actually. It's not in the same way that I hate something like, I don't know, Thor the Dark World, just shot in the dark for a random other Marvel movie, which is just, that movie is a self-contained bottle of stupidity that doesn't affect the rest of the series. No, I hate Loki with a fiery passion, because within those 10 minutes, it completely undid my investment in the MCU. It was over. It was done in 10 minutes. Nothing mattered anymore, because according to this show, there was a sacred timeline where there was only ever one way any event ever could have gone. No character ever had any free will throughout those first 3 phases. Every decision they ever made happened because Kang scripted them to make that decision, which is something the showrunner has already admitted to being true. And any deviant that dared to make a different decision, oh no, spooky, got their entire timeline pruned and subsequently got themselves sentenced to death at the hands of the giant purple cloud dragon thing. All it took was 10 minutes. 10 minutes of an awful television show to completely nullify the accomplishments of the last decade's worth of movies. So, to answer the question of what is my opinion on the actual state of the MCU, to give you an idea, I not only have lost all investment in the MCU moving forward, but I no longer care about the first 3 phases. Why would I? Why the hell would I give a shit about those movies when I know now that these characters were never making any decisions of their own free will, and that there was never any tension in the movies because it was all running on a script? Well, the answer is that I wouldn't. I wouldn't care, because what reason would there ever be to? I hate that. I hate it. Because those movies, or at least most of them, are legitimately really good. They're genuinely really well made. But I will never watch them again because I can't be asked to care, and that really sucks. So yeah, I used to be a Marvel fan right as the MCU came crashing down in a fiery inferno. And it's kind of ironic to think about, because the MCU has now become the thing that I always feared it was. For years, I thought the MCU was just a giant disaster of a movie series with no sense of cogency or character development or anything like that, and I was wrong about it. But now that after I became invested in the MCU, it became exactly that, which is it's just such a disaster. Nothing that's come out of Phase 4 has been even remotely good. good. Absolutely nothing. It's all been crap, and I cannot wait to make a video talking about how awful. Now that we know the Phase 4 is ending this year, I can actually definitively stop and say, alright, Phase 4 is done. Now let me make a video on Phase 4 and explain how terrible this is. Of course, it's possible that they may make something in Phase 5 that makes things even better or even worse, but who knows? Because it's funny, because the Multiverse of Madness that came out shows off all these other timelines and all these other alternate universes where all these other things happen. And then you have Endgame, which presents a completely different set of rules for how different timelines work compared to Loki. But Loki changes all of that because it just doesn't care. It doesn't care about trying to slot in naturally to the rest of the MCU, but whatever. I'll save the rant for when I make my video about it, probably sometime next year. I hate the MCU. It's so bad now. It's so awful. A lot of people have asked me the question of, will I do a series on, or will I do videos going over my top 10 or top 20 best and worst shows? The answer is yes. That is definitely a video that I want to make sometime in the future. I don't know when I'll do it, because these next few months are going to be really jam-packed with projects I've been meaning to make for quite a while. But yeah, I definitely want to do the same thing for shows that I've done for movies and games. I don't think I'll make one video going over the best and one video going over the worst, because I don't think I hate 20 shows. I think it makes more sense to do the top 10 best and worst in a single video, because I legitimately just don't think that there are 20 television shows out there that I actually despise with a fiery passion. But yeah, I do want to make that duology one day. Would you like to try out Corpse Party? And then there's another comment that says, please don't have any interest in Corpse Party. So, alright. I guess I'll address both of them now. I'll just be blunt in saying that I have absolutely zero desire in playing Corpse Party. I frankly just don't give a shit. From what people have told me about the game, it absolutely does not sound like something I'd be even remotely interested in, so I just won't even bother trying to get into it. If you enjoy it, that's fine. I'm happy to provide you with a fun time, but I can say confidently that I will never play that game. If you made your top 20 best and worst games of all time today, would anything change? So one person replied to this question saying that the video that I made is very recent and I haven't played many games since, which is true. I haven't played many new games since then. However, I did play one particular game immediately after releasing those videos that would absolutely be on the list if I made it today, which would be Sonic Adventure 2. It's just such an awful, awful game. I mean, admittedly, Sonic Heroes is a close contender, but ultimately, I think Adventure 2 just wins out. It's such atrocious level design and controls that actively fight against you make it utterly miserable to play. It's so bad. I was broken after I finished that LP, and you may think that sounds hyperbolic, but if you just go watch the final episode of that series, I don't sound normal. I sound defeated. It sounds like my soul's left my body after I finished playing that game, and I don't ever want to think about it for the rest of my life. That's just for the worst list. As far as the best list is concerned, I also played two games that probably would have ended up on that list if I played them earlier, and the first of which is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I don't think it would make the top 10. I think it's going to take a really exceptional game to crack the top 10. A game will have to really blow me away to make it all the way up there, but top 20? Definitely. I think it would definitely make it into the top 20. I have my issues with that game, and I've made approximately 0 attempts to hide them, but they were dwarfed by the sheer amount of improvements that it made over Donkey Kong Country Returns, and just the sheer creativity on display with the levels and the fluidity of the movement. I genuinely had not had that much fun with a platformer in a very, very long time. And then the other game would be Amori. For as much as that ending and some of those boss battles really soured my experience playing that game, I kind of had a bit of a Persona 5 situation going on in that upon further reflection, I realized that I cared more about the characters than I thought I did the first time around, except for Kel, he sucks. And the gameplay loop of the emotion-based RPG battle system was really, really fun to use, and it's the only RPG game I've ever played where I didn't mind the grinding. That's not to say I enjoyed it. Grinding still sucks. I don't like grinding, never have, never will, but it sucked much less here than it normally does in these types of games. And of course, it's undoubtedly the most terrifying game I've ever played, with genuine masterpieces of horror sequences, and I'm looking forward to playing through the game again on Xbox, because it's on Game Pass now, to see all the new content that they added, and I probably will go for 100% run for all the achievements and all the side quests as well. I don't know exactly where those two games would place in the list, but they'd be there somewhere, I'm pretty sure. Have you ever played Hollow Knight? No, I have not. I have never played Hollow Knight before, and so as for the question of would I be interested in playing it in the future? Maybe. It's been recommended to me before, and one of my friends in high school would bring his Switch to school, and he was always playing Hollow Knight all the time. Like every morning while we were waiting for the school doors to open, and we would be sitting outside, he would always be playing Hollow Knight while we were waiting. So from what I saw, the gameplay looked like something I might enjoy, so I'll go for a solid maybe on that one. Are there games you plan to LP in the future? I'm gonna pair this question up with someone else who asked, any major LPs for games you haven't played yet but want to play planned. So I kind of went over this already in the August update video, but sure, I guess I'll just give a bullet point list of some of the games I talked about there. Not doing Nirvana Initiative. Nirvana Initiative is a terrible game that just completely invalidates the original in multiple significant ways, and I hate that game with a fiery passion. Obviously, Neil and I will be streaming more co-op games during the weekend. Some games we're planning on covering is we're probably going to do Unravel, specifically Unravel 2, because that's co-op. I don't think the first game has co-op. We Were Here is a series of puzzle games that he recommended to me that I'm looking forward to trying out. River City Girls is one that I recommended to him, and I think I can convince him to give it a shot. I really, really like the art style, the music, and I've played a little bit of the game, and it seems fun, so I think it'd be cool to do that cooperatively. Of course, I'm still going to do all the Sonic games. I haven't covered yet because I made a commitment to finish what I started before what I'm sure is going to be a super incredible fun video game comes out later this year. But more as far as long-term projects, Persona 3 and Persona 4, when they come out on Xbox next year, I'll play those. Metroid, a series I still kind of want to get into. Obviously, if Halo Infinite DC DLC gets released, I'll be covering that day one. I might get into Kingdom Hearts, maybe some Xenoblade, because that's a series. The third game just came out. I don't know if it's good. Well, actually, at the time that I'm recording this, it hasn't even come out yet, so I don't know. And I want to give that series a shot one day when I have a bit more time. Played the first two Splatoon games earlier this year, so I kind of want to see what Splatoon 3 will be like. And obviously, if by some miracle we ever get another Ace Attorney game, I will 100% be playing that on the channel. So yeah, that's just a few of the games that I'm planning on for maybe not immediate projects, but at least long term over the course of a lengthy amount of time. As I have a lot of games I want to cover, and those are just a few. And it's a brief glimpse of some of the long term plans I have when it comes to YouTube Let's Plays. Most overrated game. I feel like I went over a lot of the most overrated games in my top 20 worst games video, because for a good chunk of the games that I listed there, the world thinks that they're amazing. I guess if I were to list games that are good that just aren't as good as the world thinks they are, Professor Layton would probably fit that category. You know, I mean, they're fun puzzle games, but they're not flawless, and I learned from the comments on my LP series of those games that apparently people really love Layton. Ori, those games would definitely fit the bill. It's beautiful, no doubt about it. The Ori games have genuinely awe-inspiring art and animation with spine-tinglingly spectacular music, but oh boy, does the gameplay and level design have some problems, with a special shout out to the bosses from Will of the Wisps being the biggest bullet splinters I've ever seen. Halo 2, I hate playing this game, but it's got great multiplayer, it's got great story, but Jesus, just what a massive step back from Common Evolved, so I guess that would count. Crash Bandicoot, I hear a lot of praise of Crash Bandicoot, and it's fun, but I feel like the collision detection needed a lot of work. I don't know, maybe that's just a problem with the Insane Trilogy collection, but I feel like there were a lot of times where I just slid off platforms that I definitely should have landed on because of some really wonky hitboxes, and it's because of that I still haven't played games 2 or 3, and I don't really want to. Top 5 favorite books, pair it up with someone else who asked, do you have any favorite books? This, I don't think I'll ever make a video for, if only because it'd be hard to visually edit because they're books. I'll apply the same rule of one book per series for this. Fall of Reach, that'd definitely be on there. A lot of the Halo books are really well written, and I love them, but this one specifically gave me just such a deeper understanding of the wider world building and characters of the universe. Spy School Secret Service, really just all the Spy School books in general, but Secret Service is probably my favorite, if only because of the through-the-roof stakes and how heavily stacked against the main characters the situation is. Either Poached or Pandemonium. Again, it's hard to pick from those first 4 Fun Jungle, maybe even just the first 5 Fun Jungle books. They kind of, the most recent ones that came out, Tyrannosaurus Rex and Bare Bottom, not the biggest fan of those. The Fun Jungle books kind of fell off a bit. They haven't gotten bad, just gradually worse with each passing book, but you know, they used to be great. Love Poached, love Pandemonium. Probably the best mysteries of the bunch. I don't know if I could commit to either of them as a hard and fast placement though. Insurgent would be on there. It's a close draw between Divergent and Insurgent, but I really like how much they expanded the world building and the characters in Insurgent before they just completely fly off the rails with everything in Allegiant. I mean, they really set up so many intriguing ideas for that third book. It's just such a shame that it all went to waste. And then Space Case, go read Space Case. Really, go read Stuart Gibbs as go read all this stuff anyway. Stuart Gibbs is my favorite author of all time. He writes great stuff. Granted, it's targeted at a very young, maybe not very young. He's targeting middle school / young adults. Obviously, I started reading them in middle school, but I've reread them since I first read them in middle school, and I still think that most of them hold up. Some, but most of his books hold up as just stories in general, because he doesn't. Some middle school authors will try to pander to the audience and use really basic vocabulary and very simple concepts, but he writes at a level to where kids will understand and appreciate it, but adults will also be able to read it and not think, oh god, snore, kill me. I recommend all his books. Again, some are better than others, but I think he's a really, really talented author and I have a lot of respect for him. And specifically Space Case is one of a very small amount of mysteries that genuinely surprised me. Like, just jaw-dropping reveals with the amount of just the subtlest of setups that made sense in retrospect. And if you aren't a fan of reading regular novels, I think I said this in the last Q&A, if you're not a fan of reading regular novels and you prefer maybe graphic novels, I have great news for you. There is a graphic novel version of the first Spy School book, and I think he's making a graphic novel version of the second Spy School book as well, so maybe consider giving those a shot. Pretty good stories. I haven't read the graphic novel, but I assume it's faithful to the book. I hope it's faithful to the book. Since there's a lot of new people, what production cycle do I go through to make the analysis videos? And I'll pair that up with someone else who asked how long did it take to make and edit my Toy Story 4 series. So that I can answer. I'll answer that second question first. It took me from start to finish, it took me about 2.5 months to make my Toy Story 4 videos. I mean, obviously, there are some things I noticed, because this is just counting from the second I started actively working on the series to the second that when I uploaded the final video. Obviously, things like Woody and Buzz's character assassination are things I noticed when I first saw the movie for the first time, but the way it happened is that in August of last year, after I got back from a trip to Universal with Forgetful Gal, basically as soon as we got back, I was like, alright, I had my fun, had my vacation, let's get to work. I have been wanting to make this video for so long, let's finally get to it. So it took me about 4 days to do my research for the video, where I was watching the movies and listening to the director's commentary and looking up interviews and trying to gather as much information as I could. And then it took me, the longest process I think was how long it took to write. It took about a month of time to write. I think it took me from August 27th to September 20th to actually write the script for this damn thing. And then I spent the next 2 days or so redrafting it to make sure I corrected any spelling errors, maybe restructure a few things. Basically, the day I finished redrafting it, I recorded the commentary. I did that over the course of 5 days. I didn't. It takes double the length of any one of my given videos to record the commentary for them. So if it's a 1 hour video, it'll usually take 2 hours to 2.5 hours to record the commentary. I can only do so much of that per day when it's as straining on my voice as it is. So it took 5 days to record the commentary, 1 video per day, and then I edited the audio for that commentary, for all those commentary tracks, by like chopping out all the outtakes, chopping out all the bad takes, just getting a nice refined audio commentary track while editing out the pauses and breaths and things like that. It took 4 days to do that because I was really working fast to make sure I got that done as quickly as possible. And then from September 29th to October 31st, I was just editing the Toy Story 4 videos nonstop, visually, of course, like adding in the movie for visual references and all that stuff. So yeah, start to finish, took about 2.5 months to get that series out the door. But as for giving an in-depth look into my production cycle for these videos, that is a great question I would love to answer, but I think it would work much better as its own videos. What I'm thinking of doing is for my Incredibles 2 series, because I've already kind of started doing this, is documenting the production of that series, and then after it's done, making a behind-the-scenes video after the series is over to kind of give a peek behind the curtain for anyone who's curious as to what goes into making a video or series like How Toy Story 4 Destroyed Everything, because I'm always fascinated by that stuff. I love it when YouTubers or filmmakers or anybody just gives a peek behind the curtain to show, even if it's something as simple as just a peek at the editing timeline. I love looking at that kind of stuff. For anyone who's interested in that, I'm thinking of making that its own video later this year. Top 10 characters from video games, paired up with in light of the new LPs over the last couple months, what is your updated top 10 best and worst video game characters? So, I technically answered a similar question in my 5K sub special, but most of my answers there were mainly from movies and TV. So, I can give a more structured list specifically for video games. So, as I'm looking at this list, because I don't script these videos out. Like, when I do Q&A things, I don't script them out. But if someone asks me for a list like this, I will type out the list in advance so that I have something to go off of. So, I'm looking at the list right now, and it's got Mizuki on there from AI to Somnium Files. But knowing what happens in Nirvana Initiative, I can't earnestly say she belongs on the top 10 best characters list anymore. So, I'm gonna have to take her out. Sorry, Mizuki. And who should go on there as a result instead? I like Futaba. Futaba's cool. Futaba's a pretty neat character. Liked her a lot. Kasumi, Persona 5, basically all the Persona 5 characters except for Yusuke, I loved a lot. Obviously, Ryunosuke and Susato from Grace Attorney Chronicles. big fan of them. Phoenix Wright, Miles Edgeworth, Maya Fey, and then Clementine, because I've said before how much I adore her character. I kind of feel like I grew up with her. As I mentioned in my top 20 best games video, of just the time in my life that I played all those games was a very impactful moment in my life to kind of see myself grow up alongside her. And then the top of the list is unquestionably Master Chief and Cortana. Always have been, always will be. I love those two characters and all they've been through, whether Cortana's in the form of the classic Cortana or the reborn Cortana. Not that Cortana. I love Master Chief and Cortana with all my heart, and so long as they're sticking around the Halo franchise, I'll stick right by their side to the ends of the earth. Now, as for the worst list, oh boy. Professor Layton sucks, Captain Del Rio sucks, Goro Akechi sucks, Junko sucks, Monica sucks, Kokichi, Nagito, Oda really sucks, and Iris. Oh boy, howdy Iris. Granted, you're the least of my concerns after Nirvana Initiative, but I still don't like you at all, and I would rather have you get thrown into a wood chipper. Thanks, though. Bye-bye. If you want to hear me qualify this stuff, I've gone into this on any of my respective Let's Plays for these games. I think I've also talked about this in previous Q&A videos. I know I mentioned a lot about Layton and Del Rio in the 3K and 4K Q&A videos. Maybe just the 4K Q&A video. Akechi, Junko, Monica, and Kokichi and Nagito I definitely did in the 5K Q&A video. Oda and Iris are the only new ones. Oda's just a little shit, and Iris is ungrateful as hell. We moved heaven and earth to save her life, and at the last minute, she just acts like the most condescending bitch on the planet in the ending of the game. I hate her so much. She's so awful. It's just terrible. But I guess I'd rather take her as one of the main characters again, as opposed to whatever the hell we got in Nirvana Initiative, so whatever. Thoughts on Shea Frillis Productions? So I'm assuming people are asking me this because I know he thinks very highly of Toy Story 4 by describing it as the anti-Toy Story movie, which I think is just the most self-defeating defense of the movie I've ever heard. But just because he has a questionable position on Toy Story 4 doesn't mean that I hate everything that he does. His Shrek videos are pretty good. Megamind, you know, there's good stuff on his channel. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Shea Frillis Productions. What would you like to see in a Danganronpa / Ace Attorney crossover? I would love to see the two writing teams just bite each other's heads off. I'd be far more interested in a behind-the-scenes documentary of the crossover than the crossover itself, because Ace Attorney is so well-written and compelling, and the writers are so smart, and Danganronpa ranges from being hilariously stupid to infuriatingly insulting, and it almost never makes any sense whatsoever. So I would love just to get a peek behind the curtain as to what would go on behind the scenes as the two writing teams clash against each other the whole time. I'd like to see a well-written Danganronpa game. That'd be pretty neat. I don't really have anything specific in mind. I wouldn't know what expectations to even have, because the games are just so radically different from each other, despite Danganronpa's best efforts to copy the best parts of Ace Attorney. I cannot envision a scenario where the two gameplay and storytelling styles could ever work alongside each other in the same video game. But that said, I think it would have the potential to be the best Let's Play I've ever done. Just the sheer comedic potential that such a game would create is unfathomable. I just don't think it would ever realistically happen. Have you watched Community? No. I have no idea what that show is, and I've never seen it before. What is your favorite Pokemon? I don't care about Pokemon at all, so I am the wrong person to ask this question. I guess I'll just default to the first Pokemon I got from the only Pokemon game I've ever played, which is Pokemon Sword. Well, I mean, I guess I played a little bit of Legends Arceus earlier this year, but I don't really count that because that game sucks. So the first Pokemon from Pokemon Sword I got was Sobble, so Sobble it is, I guess. What would you consider essential for a great mystery? Most importantly, a logical set of clues to follow. It is essential that the reader or the audience member or the player or whatever would feasibly be able to deduce the truth before the reveal. Not saying it needs to be obvious, but it needs to be theoretically possible for someone to look at the clues and connect the dots. Otherwise, you get things like V3 Chapter 1, where you're left wanting to scream your head off at the TV because there is literally no way anybody could have figured this out in advance, because we were operating under the assumption that the laws of physics applied in this game. There also needs to be a reason to care. It's easy enough to create a reason to get the audience member invested if it's something like a kidnapping, because obviously you can set up early on compelling reasons to make you care about a character, as well as the people around them, which, if written well, can get you to care about them quickly and then feel invested in making sure that they bring them home alive. But you can still make that sense of urgency work for other types of mysteries. And then, of course, you need red herrings. Not to say that you write plot threads that go nowhere, because that's just a waste of time. I'm more so referring to plot threads that may not necessarily end up leading you to the culprit, but will still offer useful pieces of information that ultimately tie together in the end. Which, by the way, if you want a classic example of everything I just talked about, Stranger Things Season 1 is just the embodiment of all of it. It's everything a mystery thriller should do right, and then some. It's a masterpiece of storytelling, and you should all go watch it if you haven't already. Do you like any shows, movies, games, characters that you consider so bad they are good in an ironic way? Also a question that's phrased as favorite guilty pleasure movies, TV shows, and video games. Absolutely. Not so much for characters, but for the other ones, I definitely have answers for you. For as far as shows are concerned, Manifest. God, that show is so stupid. It's almost comical how little effort they put into keeping the rules of the callings consistent, but holy hell is it so much fun to watch. Like, just look at this shit. I just fucking, how do you expect me to take any of this seriously? I mean, the thing is, season 1 started out kinda good, which is why I still care about the show, because even through all the bullshit, I'm still invested in the well-being of the characters. It's just a cherry on top that I get to experience a stupid roller coaster in the meantime. I recommend watching it for no other reason than just to laugh at the sheer stupidity. For movies, Cars 2 and Turning Red are both just textbook examples of guilty pleasures. I definitely laugh more about Turning Red because I at least care about the characters of Cars 2, whereas Turning Red is nothing but an ironic comedy machine to me. Just like Manifest, they're both off the walls insanity. On one hand, we have flying cars, and on the other, we have giant red panda battles. It's just garbage. It's just steaming hot trash. And yet, I love watching both of them because I just cannot stop laughing at the insanity. For games, I really don't have an answer for this one. Games are a totally different thing when it comes to enjoyment. For a movie, if something is bad, you can look at it and laugh at the stupidity because you don't have to actively engage with it. But for a game, if a game is fundamentally broken and brings about nothing but pain, there's no ironic enjoyment that I can get out of that. The only way that happens is if it's a purely story-driven game, and I guess AI the Somnium Files technically applies because of how mind-blowingly stupid the action sequences are, but god damn it, man, I just can't bring myself to give a shit anymore after Nirvana Initiative. It sucks when a sequel is so bad it makes you not care about the predecessors anymore. That's just the war. Because even with Toy Story 4, for as bad as it is, it'll never be able to take away my love for the original trilogy. And I guess maybe that's just because of the strength of the emotional attachment I have to those characters in that story. But as far as for AI, no, Nirvana Initiative killed it for me. I don't care about those characters anymore. It's done. It's over. What is a place you would love to travel and why? I honestly don't really have any traveling aspirations. I'm very content with my life as it is and where I am. When I was a kid, I wanted to go to Hawaii, New York City, and Washington, D.C., but I've been fortunate enough to be able to visit all those places now, and I've even been to places that I'd never thought I'd want to go, like Chicago. I just don't really have any dreams of traveling the globe or even just traveling around the U.S. My grandmother traveled a lot. She went all around the world on several different business trips, and she would always buy me a shirt from every country she visited, and she'd always send me a postcard, but that's never been my area of interest, per se. Not sure if you've answered this question. If you had to be a Halo character, which one would you be and why? So, Halo is an awesome universe that's densely packed with wonderfully endearing characters and intriguing world building, but I don't know that I'd ever want to be a part of it, because things don't tend to end well for a lot of characters. I mean, obviously everybody wants to be Master Chief because, you know, in the games he's just such a badass, but to actually step into that armor, facing off against an actual Covenant or Banished army, yeah, I'll pass, thanks. Not exactly my strong suit. Plus, the augmentation that he and other Spartans had to endure is not something I'd ever want to go through. But to be honest, if I had to pick a Halo character, I think I'd still probably go with Chief, because that just means I'd have all his skill sets and his luck, and I'd be just an unstoppable force. So this is a question that has been asked by many different people in many different ways. People ask, are you a fan of any kind of anime? Or, I want to try to get into anime, but I'm not sure where to start. Or, do you like anime in general? Besides Danganronpa 3, is there an anime that you watched or caught your interest? Many people ask very similar questions. So, as far as where to start with anime and like how to get into it, I'm the wrong person to ask about that because I've only ever seen 2 anime shows. But hey, my Discord server has plenty of people that'll be able to help you get into anime, so enjoy this shameless plug and go join it right now. I guess I can't really say that I like or dislike anime in general because of the 2 shows that I've seen, one is a lackluster retelling of the video games and the other is one of the worst piles of garbage I've ever seen. Having said that, I have played plenty of games with the same style as anime television, like Ace Attorney and Persona 5, that I've adored. So out of exclusively TV, other than Danganronpa 3, I've only watched Ace Attorney. But as far as games are concerned, there's a lot that I've played on the channel. I've played Ace Attorney, Danganronpa, which was a mistake, Zero Escape, Famicom Detective Club, Professor Layton, Persona 5, AI the Somnium Files, just to name a few. So yeah, I guess I think I can confidently say that I definitely would be a fan of anime, just I haven't seen much anime shows, just more so anime style games. Will you ever do an analysis on 8-Bit Christmas? Probably not, honestly. I've only seen it once, and while I definitely did not like it at all, I think it's quite bad. In fact, I'd actually say it really annoyed me quite a bit during some scenes. It didn't elicit a super strong emotional reaction out of me, enough to warrant a full-length analysis. In fact, I had entirely forgotten that it even existed until someone actually brought it up in the comments of my Free Guy video about a month ago, so I guess never say never, even though I just said it twice, but I wouldn't count on it. Will you rank every Mario Kart? So, as a disclaimer, there's gonna be some tier list requests that I won't be answering because they would take up a really long amount of time, and they would probably be better suited for their own video, but this I can do because it's a really short list, so I'll just throw up the tier list really quickly. Okay, so at the very bottom, we have Super Mario Kart. It is aged like dog shit. I'm glad it exists so that we were able to get better games later in the series, but it is just so painful to play. Mario Kart 64 is slightly less painful to play, for as low of a bar as that is. I got some enjoyment out of this one, but not much. Mario Kart Super Circuit is up next in the mediocre tier. I still don't really want to replay this anytime soon, but it's the first one I didn't totally hate. Next up is Mario Kart DS. I can never really get a feel for the drifting in this game. I still enjoyed it for the most part, but the drifting is definitely very different from what I used to. Then there's Double Dash. Very much enjoyed this one. A bit too chaotic for my taste, but still blast to play. That had some of my favorite courses that I hope we see again soon. Maybe someday. And then Mario Kart Wii is in the great tier. I have just so many memories associated with playing this as a kid. Objectively speaking, the controls aren't quite as tight as its sequels, but it's still a hell of a lot of fun, and I love it to bits. Then Mario Kart 7 takes second place slots. I love basically every track in this game, and I hope that we see them again in the booster pack courses, which, maybe in future waves? I don't know. And then the top of the list, I think, is easily Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I really don't think that they can ever top this in terms of how tight and fluid the controls are, on top of the jaw-droppingly gorgeous and creative courses. It just really is the ultimate Mario Kart experience. Like I said before, I'm happy that they're doing DLC for the base game instead of making Mario Kart 9, because I just, like I said, I don't think they can top it. I think this is the best they can ever make a Mario Kart game. Do you like Super Mario 64 DS? I've never played it, but I cannot imagine the controls being made better by having to use the DS's control stick or D-pad to platform around. I somehow doubt that helps things out even a little bit. So, ugh. What would be my thoughts for a possible Lightyear sequel? I really don't care what they do, to be perfectly honest. I have no emotional attachment to any of these characters. I hate this movie. I went over all the reasons why in my video back in June. This isn't Buzz Lightyear the same way this isn't Master Chief. They're imposters masquerading around in inferior costumes, maintaining none of the personality traits that people love the original character for. I'd love for the sequel to be a good movie if it ever comes out, but to be frank, I have so little faith in that happening, it's not even funny. They clearly do not have any respect for the character of Buzz Lightyear, and if they keep going down the road of storytelling from the first movie, especially since Angus MacLane clearly does not think his movie is even remotely flawed based on his Twitter interactions, it's only gonna get worse from here. I mean, I'll still make videos about whatever they do, no matter what. At this point, it's just guaranteed to be a treasure trove of material for analysis, whether it's good or bad. But I have no faith in the quality of any potential sequels, and frankly, I hope they don't make one. At this point, they just need to leave Toy Story alone. They already killed it with Toy Story 4, and then they incinerated the corpse with Lightyear. They need to stay the hell away from this franchise moving forward. Opinions on the first two Sonic movies. Love them to bits. If you ask me to analyze them critically, I could definitely do that for both movies, because there are several writing problems with both of them. But the Sonic games were some of the first I ever played. I felt like a little kid again watching them in the theaters, specifically the second one. Just such unbridled joy watching them for the first time, and I really, really hope they can stick the landing for the third movie. Do you have any interest in other genres of video making that you might consider worthy for the channel? Honestly, not really. I'm very happy with the two types of content that I make. That said, if you asked me back in 2014, I would have told you I only had aspirations to make Let's Play videos and nothing else, so who knows, maybe in another 8 years I'll find another type of video that I like to make, but for now, I'm content with Let's Plays and analysis videos. I will say that every now and again I do think about making vlogs because I think they'd be fun to do, but that would require me showing my face, which is not something that I'm willing to do. If you're going to do more documentary-like reviews on animated movies, do you have any other films in mind? If so, are they positive or negative? I absolutely have more reviews in mind, both positive and negative. Obviously, there's Incredibles 2 coming up, but Toy Story 3 praise, and then critique videos for Ralph Breaks the Internet and Aladdin 2019 are on the list as well. As is the Halo show and some other things that I don't want to commit hardcore to any projects until I make good headway with production on them, because I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver anymore. What happens when I try to promise something is that I either stress myself out getting it done on time, or I miss the deadline and people get disappointed because I didn't. Obviously, I failed to live up to the promise I made. So either way, nobody likes that. So it's just I don't want to make promises for anything until I'm in a position where I can confidently say this is a product that's going to happen and it's almost ready to get out the door. What's your favorite food, and do you like spaghetti? Coupled up with someone else who asked favorite food and favorite beverage. Well, I've never really been a big foodie, so I don't really have a favorite food per se. I do love chili though. That'd probably be my go-to answer. In fact, a little anecdote about me. Some of the best chili I've ever had was at a restaurant called Abigail's in New York City. What sucks is that restaurant is closed now. It seems like indefinitely, so I don't think you'll be able to go there if you visit or if you live there. But man, I wish you could have experienced it when it was open. That restaurant was so good. We ate there while it was under renovation. That was on my it was a summer vacation I went on with my family back when I was in high school in the summer of 2016, and we got to eat there while it was under renovation. So it was a very atmospheric sort of because the main restaurant was upstairs in a very very fancy elaborate main floor area, but they were still building that, so we essentially went into the basement of the building. And I think I actually would have liked that more than the main restaurant when we ate down there, because I don't know, it just had this really nice moody atmosphere to it and this sort of underground dining experience. It was really cool. But at that restaurant they had a menu item called award-winning chili, and before you ask what award it won the James Beard Award, and it was delicious. I love how chili tastes when it's freshly cooked. So I'd probably go for that for favorite food. And yes, I do love spaghetti. That was spaghetti and meatballs was always the Sunday night family dinner that we had when I was a kid. So it tends to bring back nostalgic memories for me. As a favorite beverage, it really depends on the meal. Obviously, orange juice is great with eggs, bacon, toast. Nope, that's definitely not a reference to any particular movie. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's repulsive with French toast. So I guess I just pick Minute Maid lemonade. No, I'm not sponsored. I'm just telling you the brand of lemonade that I'd like to drink preemptively before anybody asks what brand it is. So in fact, I actually have a bottle of that right now as my beverage to not dry my throat out while I record this commentary. Who is your favorite Mario character? Captain Toad. I really don't know what it is about him, but I guess I love his unyielding courage to jump into an adventure even when he doesn't have the same skill set as Mario. I don't know what it is about him. I just really like him. I don't know. Is there any changes to your most awful characters list? Several characters from the Halo show would be there. As I mentioned earlier, Iris and Oda and probably some other AI characters from Nirvana Initiative specifically would be there, but other than that, not really. The list is still pretty much intact from how it was earlier this year. What's the most WTF moment you've ever seen? In a negative way, the ending of Toy Story 4. I was just genuinely stunned to silence by what I was watching happen on the screen. I felt like I jumped to a different universe or something. It didn't feel real. It felt like everything was breaking down around me. In a positive way, though, either the plot twist for Dragon's Earth 3D or the plot twist at the end of Case 3 of Grace's Journey 2. Although I guess realistically, the biggest WTF moment probably is going to be Pablo the Penguin making the big love with Mickey Mouse. Because that was just, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Two similar questions here. Your top 10 best villains and your favorite and least favorite villains in any piece of media. So top 10 would be Vecna. I hesitate to put him on the list because for all I know, they could completely screw him up in Season 5. But right now, I think he belongs on the list. Lotso, I've sung my praises for him before. Doofenshmirtz, I don't even feel comfortable calling him a villain per se. Because like, obviously he makes evil innators and describes himself as evil. His billing is literally called Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. But he clearly doesn't have an evil heart. He's more so engaging with Perry as a Tom and Jerry style, let's do our daily fight thing than anything else, because when the chips are down and his back's against the wall, his morals are always in the right place. But in the context of the Phineas and Ferb narrative structure, he's a villain, technically speaking, so I think he deserves to be on the list. I don't know. Syndrome's great, GLaDOS is great, the Investigations 2 villain, who I would never spoil for you. Dahlia Hawthorne, love her, she's a great villain as well. Scar and Jafar, a lot of people love Scar, say he's their favorite Disney villain, which I understand, but Jafar has always been my favorite. And I think my all-time favorite villain, honestly, probably goes to Escharum from Halo Infinite. He's, at the very least, my favorite villain in the Halo series. I don't want to really go too much into it because I feel like I want to save it for any potential video I may end up making one day on Halo Infinite's campaign, but just the dichotomy and parallels between him and Chief of being a soldier not entirely different from Master Chief, who's just fighting for a cause he hoped was worthwhile, trying to live up to Aatrox's legacy, placing all his faith in a plan he didn't fully understand just because he had so much faith in Aatrox as a person, or a brute, I guess, and just doing whatever he could to keep the fire alive in the hearts of the banished. I really like Escharum a lot. He's really, really cool. And as far as least favorite villain, Gabby. She's an emotionally manipulative, cold-hearted bitch who kidnaps, tortures, and manipulates people and is partially responsible for Woody leaving his family. And the fact that a concerning amount of people don't even think she's a villain does not help matters at all. A lot of people ask me what my favorite Sonic game was for a ranking of Sonic games, so for my top 5 favorite Sonic games, I'll I'll just rip the band-aid off of this one. 06 will be on there. Yeah, it's the game the world hates, whatever. But my streams of that game speak for themselves. The game isn't the insufferable catastrophe the world makes it out to be. It's not a great game. I've never claimed it as such. It's probably like a 5 or 6 out of 10, objectively speaking. But it's certainly the one that I enjoy playing the most. There's Sonic Colors, which calling it the best 3D Sonic game almost seems like false advertising, given the percentage of the game that's in 2D. But I don't care. The game's still a blast to play, except for Asteroid Coaster, which is just a terrible level. Sonic Mania is a phenomenal return to the classic formula. It takes familiar stages and then just makes them even better somehow. It's got one failure and one stage that they really couldn't do anything to fix, but other than that, it's one of the best Sonic games that's ever been made. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is an unquestionable improvement over the original in just about every way imaginable, and then Sonic Generations, of course, which is just a trip down memory lane in all the best ways. It gives the perfect taste of old and new, even if the boss fights really suck. Have you ever been asked a question where the person who asked purposely wrote it in a way to elicit laughter due to how absurd it is that it has to be a joke? Well, no, I can't say that I... Funny. Least favorite show you've ever watched. Allow me to introduce you to Paramount's Halo. If you're a Halo fan, it's a disastrous adaptation that seems to go out of its way to deliberately and explicitly shit all over the things that people loved about the Halo games. If you're not a Halo fan and are just watching it as its own thing, it's still a steaming pile of shit, because nothing about the show makes any sense at all within its own internal rule set. And that's why I'll be making an entire series all about the show coming to a YouTube video near you sometime soon. Hopefully. How would you react if there was a Toy Story 5? Well, my immediate reaction would be to cackle uncontrollably at all the people who begged Pixar not to make a 5th one, citing Toy Story 4 as the perfect ending to the series. But beyond that, depends what they do. I know I said earlier that they should stay away from Toy Story, and I think they should, if they're gonna keep going down the road they are with these movies, but I would love for them to make a 5th Toy Story movie that fixes all the mistakes of Toy Story 4, because it is definitely possible to do that, at the very least in terms of character, but that will require them to be aware that they've done something wrong. But as far as they're concerned, they're geniuses for making that movie, so don't know about that one there, Chief. I'm pretty sure any attempt they make with a 5th movie would only end up dealing more damage, honestly. I'd love to see a movie that fixes the mistakes of the past, but I think it would just blow up in their faces. Like I said earlier, I just want them to stay away from the series at this point. Favorite Danganronpa trial and least favorite? Well, my favorite's gonna go to Chapter 4 from the first game, and that's only as easy of a choice as it is, because the rest of them are just such utter shit. Yeah, there's some merit to the 4th chapters of games 2 and V3, but they're still just the least terrible cases of the game. There's nothing really to write home about there. It's much harder to pick the least favorite because they're all so bad, but I'm pretty sure the winner still goes to the last case of V3. I mean, because when you invalidate every single thing that happened in the previous games, shows, and books for that matter, that pretty much nets you the worst slot by default. Do you have any interesting cartoons anymore, and will you talk about any of them in the future? In terms of cartoon shows, not really. I don't watch much network TV outside of The Rookie anymore. I mean, streaming shows, obviously, I still watch, obviously, Stranger Things is the thing, so there's that, but my days of having a million new cable shows coming out every week are far behind me, and the same is true for cartoon shows. I have no interest in whatever new shows Disney Channel and Nickelodeon are producing. I just don't care. But as for Disney and Pixar movies, I care far less about their new releases than I used to. I used to look forward every single year to the next big Pixar movie. That used to be a guaranteed, you will have a good time at the movie theater if you go to see this movie. But now, I don't even know what to expect anymore. We went from me thinking, hey, the new Disney movie came out. I'm so excited. Let's go. To me just being like, oh no, it's another Disney movie. What are you gonna do this time? Now, I don't even know what to expect anymore. After getting Turning Red and Lightyear in the same year, what am I even supposed to think of Pixar? I mean, same for Disney. What did we get? Raya and the Last Dragon? Frozen 2? I mean, yeah, we got Encanto, but that's one good movie out of the last 4 that studio produced. But no matter what, if I watch a show or a movie and it either touches my heart or pisses me off, I'm gonna talk about it on the channel. If I have the passion, a video will be made, even if I don't generally have interest in that stuff as much as I used to anymore. Thoughts on 12-ounce mouse? I've literally never heard of that before, so sadly I can't give any thoughts on it. Have you ever considered doing a crossover with someone when it comes to reviewing or analyzing movies? No, not at all. I am extremely particular when it comes to creative endeavors. It's why I've never considered hiring an editor. I've had offers. People have emailed me before asking to edit my videos, but I've never accepted them because I just don't want to relinquish that creative control to someone else. It would probably be better for my mental health if I did didn't do all the editing myself, but working together with another person would either result in me getting increasingly frustrated working with someone that has a vastly different video style, or it would result in a very disjointed video with just drastically different editing styles back to back in the same video. So there's a very small handful of people that I enjoy working with and things like that, and they're limited exclusively to close friends. So I don't want to deny the idea entirely. If someone reaches out for a collaborative opportunity, I might consider it depending on the circumstances, but generally speaking, right now, specifically for analysis videos, I don't really have any desires to do so. Let's Plays are a bit different. If someone wants to do a collab for a Let's Play, that's easier for me to say yes to, but for when it comes to reviewing a movie with multiple people, unless it's literally just a roundtable discussion, it's a bit of a different story for that, so I don't know. Probably not. Do you ever plan to make something similar with your analysis videos on Danganronpa 3 and Toy Story 4 with video games? I know you plan to ran for Apollo Justice, but dropped it. Positive or negative does not matter. Actually, yes, there are some video games that I want to talk about, both positive and negative. My Halo retrospective series is something that I promised last year and never delivered upon, but I have a lot of things to say about the Halo games that I don't often get to see brought up. Like, Halo 5 is equivalent to Toy Story 4 in terms of character assassination, so I get to that game. Oh boy howdy. I don't know when I'll make my Halo series. Maybe I'll do it after the Halo show, just to kind of balance it out with talking about something good for a change, but I still want to get around to it one day. And then there's a security breach video. I promised it, and I don't want to renege on it. It just might take some time to get that done. What is your stance on modern day comic books? I do not read comic books. The only comic I've ever read is the Phineas and Ferb comics you found in the magazine. Remember the Phineas and Ferb magazine? Did any of you subscribe to that? Because I certainly was. I was absolutely a subscriber of the Phineas and Ferb magazine. I don't know if it was, I think it was monthly, but I'm not sure. However often those things came, I just ate that stuff up. I just consumed as much Phineas and Ferb content as I possibly could at the time, and I loved the Phineas and Ferb comics that were baked into those magazines. So that's all I have for comic books. But as far as, and I think I also read the graphic novelization of Toy Story 3 when I was a kid, but that's, again, not much. The more traditional comic books people think about, I've never really been into that stuff. Would you rather have it so that none of the Toy Story movies ever existed, but you don't get to see the characters in world building assassinated, or would you have the movies exist but acknowledge that they will get destroyed? I don't want to sacrifice how much the original trilogy of Toy Story movies have changed my life, especially since Toy Story 4 has changed it even more so, and it kind of makes me conflicted on Toy Story 4. That movie gave me the chance to be able to make these types of videos consistently and make a decent amount of money off of it. But also, fuck this movie, because it's really bad and it destroyed everything. See what I mean? I'm at odds with it. It's a movie that's given me a chance I never thought I'd get, and it's also a movie that pisses me off to my core and destroyed my favorite characters from anything ever, so it's a work in progress relationship. What is your tier list for the Mario games? This is another rather short one. I think I can blow through this one pretty quickly. Obviously discounting the Mario Kart games, since I ranked those earlier, and also discounting Captain Toad Treasure Tracker because I love that game, one of my all-time favorites, but I'd say it's more of a spin-off than one of the main Mario games than anything else. I haven't played all of them. Like, I haven't played Super Mario World or the DS New Super Mario Bros. Games, but of the ones that I've played, Super Mario 64 goes to the bottom easily. I believe I've made my contempt for this game very well known over the years. I know plenty of people have a soft spot for it, which is fine. You know, it was their childhood game. It was revolutionary when it came out. Whatever the case may be, I'm glad you get joy out of playing it, but it has aged like absolute milk, and playing it is nothing but misery and suffering. Super Mario Sunshine has aged slightly less terribly than 64 has. There's some satisfying movements you can pull off, and the first half of the game is alright. Might even say some of it's pretty fun. But then you get to garbage like Pianta Village or RNG Casino bosses, or utterly nonsensical and inconsistent boat physics, and then you just want to die. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is a decent enough time, 7 out of 10 experience, I'd say, with some pretty neat platform challenges, but New Super Mario Bros. U just takes everything fun about the original and makes it even better. It's got a more fleshed out overworld, better levels, better power-ups, better bosses, just more content all around. Great time. Love it. Love the game. And then, in several tiers removed from the other ones, is Super Mario Galaxy. Just groundbreaking stuff. I've always been a nerd for outer space, so gravity-centric platforming blew my mind as a kid. I just wish the back half of the game wasn't as repetitive and padded as it was. Then Super Mario Odyssey is probably the objectively better game in terms of just movement, momentum, level design, and content available, but I still love Galaxy 2 more. It is an undeniable, categorical improvement over the original Galaxy, and I went over all the reasons why in my top 20 best games video. Yeah, I haven't played all the Mario games, but of the ones I've played, that would be my ranking. Do you regret getting into Danganronpa? Yes and no. Obviously, there's the mental mental health side of me that looks at what I had to endure last summer with the franchise and says, what were you thinking? When you actually look at the domino effect that series created, it's been nothing but beneficial for me. Because getting into Danganronpa is what led me to make my Danganronpa 3 series, which gave me the experience that I needed to make my How Toy Story 4 Destroyed Everything series as good as it was, which then led me to gain the large amount of traction I've received over the last few months, which has given me the opportunity to actually make decent money off the channel. And were it not for Danganronpa, I don't know that I ever would have gotten to this point. But of course, I don't want to give all the credit to Danganronpa because I never would have even found that series were it not for Ace Attorney, which I never would have found without Random Encounters, which I never would have found without FNAF, which I never would have found without Minecraft, for as weird as that may sound. So if you really want to pull back all the dominoes to a single starting point, it would probably be because of me getting into Minecraft, finding Acidic Blitz and his content shortly before he started playing FNAF on his channel, and, well, you know the rest of it from there. It's crazy how things can lead to each other, how you can start out with Minecraft and that leads you to eventually discovering one of the best video game series of all time, and subsequently one of the worst video game series of all time, and that leading into you being given the opportunity of a lifetime to do what you've always wanted to do on this channel. It's crazy how things can work out like that. Would a Danganronpa case tier list be okay? I can make one, but they're all really shit. I really don't think there's any value to make a Danganronpa case tier list because almost all of them would go in the awful tier. It would just be a matter of distinguishing between how one case is slightly less garbage than the other garbage cases. Chapter 4 of all 3 games are good. Ranked from best to worst, it goes Trigger Happy Havoc, Killing Harmony, and then Goodbye Despair in terms of best 4th cases to worst 4th cases. Beyond that, any other Danganronpa case that had the potential to be amazing was just utterly ruined by something. Usually absurd levels of contrivance, but other than that, complete trash. That said, like I mentioned earlier, I will give a special shout out to the final case of V3, which was so incomprehensibly awful that it actually broke me, and I had to play Rift Apart afterwards just to try to get my mind off of the atrocities that I endured. When you nullify everything beforehand, that earns you a special tier of shit. What are your thoughts on the Star Wars prequels? Like I said in my top 20 worst movies video, I really don't have any positive feelings towards any of the Star Wars movies, and the prequels are no different. It's fun to fight Darth Maul and Anakin Skywalker in LEGO Star Wars, though. Those are 2 pretty cool set pieces, especially on co-op where the 2 people can actually fight each other in the end of Revenge of the Sith. It'd be a shame if there were any subsequent LEGO games that removed that feature on top of making a myriad of other monumentally stupid design choices. But then, more on that later. Yeah, I don't like the prequels at all, but that's just me with Star Wars in general, so take that for what it's worth. Several people asked, are you planning to do a security breach review? And yes I am. I did promise that I'd do that in my top 20 worst games video, and I don't like making promises that I can't keep, so I will definitely be making that video. Don't know when, because like I mentioned, the next few months are going to be pretty busy, and with how much the developers have updated the game over the last year, I would need to play through it again, which, to see if the changes they made are positive or negative, or if they just haven't changed anything at all. But yeah, it's still a project that I want to do. I just don't know exactly when. Are you ever going to play Kid Icarus Uprising? I didn't know what that was before this question, and after looking it up, I'll say, probably not. What is the most mediocre movie you've ever seen? God, I don't even know. It's the problem with mediocre movies is that there's nothing substantive about them to either hate or love. You just see it, and then it gets flushed out of your mind very, very quickly. The first one to come to my mind was Abominable. Maybe that's... I don't know. Another one I saw, the only thing that I thought to myself was, well, that was a movie. I guess it's watchable. It's fine, I suppose, but there's nothing about it that's so egregious that I hated it, and there's nothing about it that's so mind-blowing that I loved it. It's just the most movie that I've ever seen, I think. I mean, there may be a better example of a mediocre movie out there, but again, nothing that fits this category is gonna stick out of my memory due to the very nature of it being, you know, mediocre. Best and worst tweet you've seen. I don't care enough about Twitter to catalog the best and worst tweets. There's too much garbage on that hellish bird app for me to pick just one stupid tweet, and I don't even know when the last time I saw a good tweet was, and I'm really just slowly trying to cut Twitter out of my life entirely outside of using it as a means of just acquiring news. Originally, I got it to interact with fans, but I have the Discord server for that now, so Twitter serves no purpose in my life other than to annoy me nowadays. What is your favorite country? I have absolutely no patriotic tendencies towards any country. I've really just had nothing of the sort for any geographical location. Like, when I was in school, there were always pep rallies like, yeah, go our mascot, woohoo! And I'd always just be sitting there like, I don't care. This is nothing but a place of education for me. I come here every day hoping that I'll gain more brain cells from class than I'll lose by interacting with other human beings. And the same thing for countries. I have no passionate feelings towards countries whatsoever. I've never been a patriot of anything like that. What is your favorite sport? I'm not exactly one with sports ball. The only one I've ever played competitively is soccer, and I use the term competitively very loosely because I was in my late elementary school or early middle school years, so whatever competitive sports means at that age. If you want to hear all about my misadventures in the world of soccer, you can check out this Mario Kart Wii video. And that was fun. You know, I don't think I'd ever want to go back to it nowadays, but I enjoyed it for the most part when I did it. And of course, I played tons of miscellaneous sports in gym class in both middle and high school when I was a kid. You know, kickball was a big one, pickleball, which I hated pickleball. Ultimate Frisbee was pretty neat, maybe. Basketball, I was fast. I kind of liked it, maybe. Volleyball was pretty good at volleyball. Flag football is just garbage. And then you have the worst sport to have ever existed in the history of anything ever, which is dodgeball. I got some enjoyment out of stuff like volleyball, like I said, mostly because I was actually pretty good at volleyball, but the most fun I ever had was playing soccer for an actual team. But as far as favorite sport to watch, that's hockey. It's not even necessarily for any particular team. Sometimes I'll just look up compilations or highlight reels on YouTube for just watching random NHL games, because hockey is just such a goddamn entertaining sport to watch. What video game would you recommend to people without gaming experience who want to experience an engaging story? So the immediate two things to pop into my head are Ace Attorney and The Beginner's Guide, because there's no proper gameplay for either of them. With Ace Attorney, the only skill set you need is menu navigation and analytical thinking. There's no traditional gaming skills that are required for you to succeed in that game. And man, Ace Attorney has some of the most brilliantly written, emotionally compelling stories across the entire gaming industry. And The Beginner's Guide doesn't have any typical objectives at all. It falls into the category of walking simulator, which I know, ooh, spooky, but I don't know that any game has ever had such a profound personal impact on me. It's one of those sit down and stare at the wall for an hour trying to wrestle with a story you just witnessed kind of games. I can't explain to you why without spoiling the experience, which isn't something that I'd ever do for anybody. So please go play it. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and I never see it get talked about. It's great. Go play it. It's like $10, I think, on Steam. Worth every penny. Go play it. Every DreamWorks movie you have watched ranked from worst to best. This is one of the ones I think would work better for its own video. I'm not super invested in a ranking of DreamWorks movies, especially because I actually haven't seen a lot of them, and I only really have strong feelings towards a handful, but if there's enough interest in this, then maybe I can make it its own video one day. It would take too much time to do this in a video. I made that mistake with ranking Pixar movies, MCU movies, and Halo games all in the same Q&A, and I'm not doing that again. What are your thoughts on modern Disney films or modern Disney as a whole? At this point, just general apathy. As far as the movies are concerned, they're clearly still capable of creating good things. We can see that at Disney in the form of Encanto, and we can see it at Pixar in the form of Soul, but we're at the point where things like that are few and far between, and a quality Disney production is the exception rather than the rule. Pixar went from a company that I could always look to optimistically for a guaranteed great film to a roll of the dice. Will this one be good or will it be a pile of garbage? Find out next time, I suppose. And if you want my thoughts on modern Disney as a whole, my feelings do not improve. In fact, they get much worse. Because at least Pixar is still sticking to one, or at worst two, films per year, but then you look at what Marvel's doing and you just feel the urge to die. Like, look at this shit. You cannot sustain anywhere near an acceptable level of quality when you are churning out this garbage basically every month. Just look at this year. We got Moon Knight from March to May, then Multiverse of Madness in May, then Miss Marvel from June to July, and Thor Love and Thunder in July, then She-Hulk from August to October, rounding out the year with Black Panther in November. It's nothing but a sludge machine churning out more of the same vapid, tonally bogged, world-building annihilating, character-vacant garbage at regular intervals to scratch your Marvel itch. And it's the same damn thing with Star Wars, and if you want me to look beyond their movies and shows, what they're doing at the parks is just straight up slimy and disgusting with their blatant price gouging. The biggest example of that is FastPass, which was once a complimentary service for everybody to use, giving them a significant leg up over Universal, but it's a paid-for service that is much worse than Universal's paid-for service, and it's just, I hate it all. The Dis Unplugged podcast talks about recent Disney park news, and is just doing a great job of cataloging the downfall of those parks, as the management continues to make increasingly idiotic short-term profit-driven decisions that are ultimately going to drive away the people who care most about the sense of wonder they used to feel when visiting your parks. God damn it, remember when there used to be some element of magic to be found with Disney? Yeah, me too, but something tells me we're never gonna get that ever again. Do you like the new animation style of characters making wacky facial expressions in modern SpongeBob ever since season 10, or do you find it annoying? I haven't watched most modern SpongeBob content. The last season I watched all the way through was season 4, and I enjoyed most of that, but season 5 was when the show started to lose me with only like 1, maybe 2 episodes that I actually enjoyed. But by the time they got to season 6, I dropped off. I stopped caring. The only 2 modern pieces of SpongeBob that I've seen are the movies, which are both utter garbage, but I wouldn't say it's because of wacky facial expressions. I mean, I know you said that since season 10, which was after the second movie, so that wouldn't really apply, but even in the third movie, my issues were much more to do with the awful writing than any superficial animation details, so I guess I can't say I like or or dislike them? What is your least favorite cartoon? Some of the go-to examples for this, like Breadwinners, Teen Titans Go, or Sanjay and Craig, are shows that I never saw because even as a kid, I took one look at them and said, no! So I've never seen them. Camp Coral and the Patrick Star Show, again, I've never seen them, and I never will out of principle because the creator of SpongeBob never wanted them to be made, and the scumbags of Nickelodeon waited until he passed away to make them, which is downright duplicitous, and I refuse to stand for it. But I can't actually judge the quality of the shows for that very reason. I will not watch them no matter what. Which, by the way, I'm assuming we're referring to TV shows here, not movies, because for movies, it's obvious what the answer is. I don't really have a good answer for you off the top of my head. I've enjoyed pretty much every cartoon show I've ever watched. Actually, does Dragon's Dogma 2 count? I know it's an arcade game, but it is still a full animated short film in that arcade game, and it's dumb as shit, and I really hate it compared to the first one. I don't know, I really don't have a good answer for this, so rather than try to find something random, I'll just say that I don't have a least favorite cartoon, I suppose. I guess by nature of rankings, one of them would end up at the bottom, but it wouldn't be anything that I actually hate. Do you hate modern Disney villains? No, there are far larger problems with Disney's recent movies than their villains. I mean, Gabby Gabby's obviously the exception to that. She's just horrifically badly written, but I can't really say the same for their other movies. I guess you can say that they haven't really had any truly memorable villains alongside the likes of Jafar or Scar ever since King Candy and Wreck-It Ralph and Mother Gothel Tangled, but villains as a whole are not what would immediately come to mind when talking about the problems with modern Disney. How would you rank the Indiana Jones movies? Easy. The bottom, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You shouldn't need me to tell you why this one sucks, but if you do, you can just go watch my top 20 worst video for movies. Next up, Temple of Doom. There's a reason why Willie's scream is a gameplay mechanic in LEGO Indiana Jones. She's just insufferable to listen to. Jumping from Marion to her as a sidekick is like going from Maya Fey to Trucy Wright. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud? Honestly, though, that's not really all that fair to Trucy, because she was the best part of that game and is nowhere near as bad as Willie. It's like they're on polar opposite ends of the spectrum, honestly, but point still stands. She sucks. The story as a whole feels incredibly disjointed from the other parts of the trilogy and has garnered an understandable amount of controversy as the years have gone on, and sadly the action is not enough to make up for that at all. Then there's Raiders of the Lost Ark, just tight pacing, exceptional action, and a really great script, but a very anticlimactic ending, and it's lacking the emotional core of The Last Crusade, which is my favorite Indiana Jones movie that improves on Raiders of the Lost Ark in every way except pacing, with better action, a much more gripping character story, and a nice little ending to tie up the trilogy with a pretty little bow on top. And I'll just save a slot at the bottom of the list for Indiana Jones 5, because if that movie ends up being anything other than unmitigated dog shit, I'll have to check to see if pigs are flying. I just don't. I have no faith in that movie being good at all. Even if Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was the best movie ever, which it's not, I still would have no faith in it. At this point, reviving the franchise this many years later, this can't possibly end well. Does anybody have faith in this movie? Honestly, let me know in the comments. Does anybody, even a single one of you, think Indiana Jones 5 is going to be anything other than utter dog shit? I somehow doubt that. Thoughts on Lord of the Rings? Never seen them. I've heard they're great. Oh, and I guess there's books. I've never read or watched them. I don't really have a desire to do so. Doesn't really look like it'd be my style, because I've never really been into that type of fantasy. Favorite FNAF fan game? This may surprise you, but I have legitimately never played any FNAF fan games. I have watched a few Let's Plays of FNAF fan games, people like Markiplier, though, and of the ones I've seen him play, I think it's clear that the Joy of Creation story mode is the uncontested winner, and it's not even close. That's not to discredit the works of any really talented, passionate fan game creators, but the sheer amount of production value and effort that went into this was unfathomable. Again, though, never played any of it myself. Can't say. Waffles or pancakes? Pancakes all the way. I've never liked waffles, which is something that I hesitate to say, considering, well, you know, but yeah, that my allegiance has always lied with pancakes over waffles. 100%. Have you played Age of Calamity? And if so, what do you think? And if not, would you play it? It's been recommended to me before, but I'm not very interested in Zelda games. I know it's meant to be a spin-off or whatever, but I don't know, I'm just not really into Zelda. After your Incredibles 2 series, would you consider making the Toy Story 3 praise video, since it currently has the second highest votes on your community post? I think the next big thing I'm gonna do is make another video on Lightyear. A decent amount of people requested that I revisit it when it comes out on Disney Plus for a deeper dive to catch all the problems that I missed the first time around, or even just to correct some mistakes that I made. But yes, after I do that, a Toy Story 3 praise is 100% next up on the list of video products to make, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Favorite and least favorite LEGO game? Favorite is easily LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures, and nothing else has even come remotely close to dethroning it. My least favorite is LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Such an embarrassment of a video game that I knew from day one would be garbage the moment it was announced, but it ended up being so much worse than I thought, and I'll go into that a little bit more later in this Q&A. Where would you put the new Pixar movies into your tier list? Well, it's not a very interesting development because they're both going straight into the awful tier. Turning Red would still be clearly above Lightyear, but it's only by the slimmest of margins. If for no other reason, then I can get ironic enjoyment out of it. But I feel nothing but pain watching Lightyear. It's so bizarre to have a movie feel so soulless and yet simultaneously crap all over a beloved character so much. If you were to extend your top 20 least favorite movies into the least top 25, what new movies would you put there? I don't know, I have to think about that a bit more. Despicable Me 3, very crap, very disjointed mess, where a bunch of characters go on random side quests all throughout the movie, and none of it really has any relevance to the overarching plot. The Aladdin remake and the Mulan remake, both really bad, and Mulan especially is just morally reprehensible because of the meta circumstances surrounding that movie's production. Little Mermaid 2 is very bad. Remember the Timon and Pumbaa knockoffs? I remember Timon and Pumbaa knockoffs, they're my favorite. Minions Rise of Gru, that wasn't very good. It beat Lightyear, which is depressing for many different reasons. I wouldn't say it's as bad as Lightyear, but it's still not very good. It's hard, because there's plenty of crap movies out there, but to make that list, they have to piss me off in some way, and like some people ask me why Cars 2 wasn't on the list, and the reason why is because I just get ironic enjoyment out of that movie. So I can't say that I hate Cars 2 because I don't. I enjoy watching it for just the sheer stupidity that it offers, but it's still a bad movie, just not one that would go on my least favorites of all time. Yeah, I guess those would be the ones off the top of my head, but I don't know. I never really put much thought into what would extend beyond the top 20. Do you ever plan on having a pet or more pets? I don't have any pets right now, mainly because I'm allergic to most of them. I'm allergic to dogs, I'm allergic to cats, and I'm quite frankly kind of terrified of dogs. It's not a phobia of dogs, but I just don't like them, and I think they all want to kill me. So yeah, I wouldn't want that. I had goldfish when I was a kid, you know, the lamest pet you can have, I guess. I love the idea of having a pet. Theoretically, having a cute dog or cute cat to chill with, to relax, to pet, because like I can see people have really intense emotional attachments to their pets, but I'm allergic to most of them. And like I said, because Forgetful Gal has 2 giant dogs, and I hate them so much. They're just, they look like, I swear to God, they must be horses or like trained monsters or something. I don't even know. They're the biggest dogs I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand what it is, and they actively try to kill me every time I go over to visit her. Don't plan on having any pets anytime soon. Are you going to do a Phase 4 MCU tier list? Sure, it's all shit. There we go, there's the tier list. Discerning the difference between movies and shows in the 4th phase of the MCU is like discerning the difference between Danganronpa class trials. Except it's actually harder because at least there's like 3 good Danganronpa trials, but there was nothing, and I do mean absolutely nothing good to have come out of Phase 4 outside of 1 or 2 scenes or lines of dialogue in a handful of movies, but the rest of it has been utter garbage, and I'll go into more detail about that whenever I get around to making my video on Phase 4. What do you expect out of the next Ace Attorney game if it comes out? As far as expectations are concerned, I expect it to never come out, honestly. If it ever does, I expect to receive a good story. That's usually as far as my expectations go for most things, to avoid setting myself up for disappointment. But the only plot point that I actually expect a resolution for is Apollo and Trucy's lack of knowledge about the fact that they're siblings. Beyond that, I'm pretty much down for anything. Do you want to check out the other Professor Layton games? And if so, what do you expect out of them? Yeah, I do. After the cavalcade of crap I've played and watched over the past few years, I'm honestly itching to go back to the Professor Layton universe. I look back upon that trilogy fondly, which sounds real bizarre considering how many problems those stories have and how I've spoken about it over the years, but compared to the likes of Danganronpa, it looks like a masterpiece in comparison. Plus, no matter what, I sure get some fun puzzles to solve. If nothing else, I can count on that. Have you played a Need for Speed game or any other games that you wanted to make a Let's Play for? I have never really played a Need for Speed game. No, I do own Need for Speed Rivals. In fact, fun little story, that was the first co-op game Neil and I ever made plans to play. We just couldn't get it to work, so maybe one day we'll revisit it. I'm sure he still has the game. Maybe that could be a fun stream, revisiting Need for Speed Rivals and finally getting a chance to play it on stream. Who knows? Maybe that could be a fun thing to do. As far as games I've wanted to make a Let's Play for, I've pretty much covered every game I ever wanted to LP. Well, because like when I started the channel, there were a bunch of games that I wanted to make Let's Plays for, just that I already knew, whether they were games that were coming out soon or games that had already come out that I just wanted to play on the channel. I already had a list of games I wanted to cover, and I've pretty much already burned through all those games, outside of maybe a couple things that I might do one day. At this point, any new game I cover in the future would either be a new release or something that someone else suggests for me to play. What are your thoughts on Invader Zim? I've never seen it, so I can't comment on it. Will you feature a cat named FG more prominently, just like you do with Neil? I would make a million videos with her if I got the chance to, but our schedules have to align for that to happen, and more often than not, when we make an effort to spend time with each other, we usually just want to do that, to be together and relax, or just do something fun. We don't always want to make a video together, so with the rare instances in which we get to spend time together, it's not, we don't always want to dedicate that time to to video production. But if she ever wants to do a collab for her channel, I will always be open to that possibility, and I have every intention of using this channel to market hers no matter what. And by the way, go subscribe to her channel. It's in the description. Go do it right now, please. What's your opinion on every SpongeBob game? I haven't really played all that many of them. Obviously, Battle for Bikini Bottom is a masterpiece. The movie game is a terrible copy of the movement and camera from Battle for Bikini Bottom. It just takes the best elements from that and then surrounds it with a heap of garbage. Planes Robotic Revenge is monotonous, kinda not that great, but it's not offensively bad, I guess. Lights, Camera, Pants is a fun as hell party game that I would love to stream one day with a group of 4. Coordinating it would be a hassle, but if ever I get the chance, I would jump for it to be able to play that game with 4 people again. That is such a fun party game. Can you show your DVD collection, please? It's one thing I never really understood their appeal of, YouTubers showing off their Blu-ray or DVD collections. I guess my Blu-ray collection would be at least somewhat more manageable, but DVD collection? We're talking 20 years of DVDs. I've held on to everything from full seasons of TV to collections of episodes from shows that I watched as a kid to instructional videos to sing-alongs to movies I have in 4K but still for some reason have the DVD. It would just take way too goddamn long to go through every DVD I have, so sorry, but I will not be showing off my DVD collection. If you ever made a Pixar film, what would the film title be and what would be the story? I wouldn't want to do a sequel, I want to go for something totally original, so I'd go for something like Toy Story 5, and I'd go out of my way to deliberately and explicitly dunk on and subsequently reverse every single brain-dead decision made in Toy Story 4. I get everything back on track. I get Woody back to Bonnie's room. I portray Buzz as competent again. I'd explain away Jesse's contradictory claustrophobia with a broken voice box or something. I don't know. Maybe that could be a video. Fixing Toy Story 4, either in a sequel or with a rewrite of the movie. I mean, joking aside with the whole original idea like Toy Story 5 thing, I do have original ideas I'd love to make one day, but if I ever got the opportunity to do anything I wanted at Pixar, my number one absolute priority would be erasing Toy Story 4 from canon as fast as possible. If I can't just literally do that and put out an announcement decanonizing it, then I'd have to do what Halo Infinite did to Halo 5 and just take extreme efforts to fix what was broken. So yeah, that'd be my Pixar movie. I would love to see all the Toy Story 4 defenders lose their minds over, oh my god, you ruined the perfect ending of Toy Story 4! And then I'd be like Loki from Thor Ragnarok when he goes, I just laugh. What would you change on Suits Season 8? I would nuke it and start again from scratch. I would change the whole thing. Suits Season 8 sucks. The first thing I'd change would start at the end of Season 7, by which I mean I never would have taken Mike out of the show in the first place because almost every problem with Season 8 can be traced back to that point. Because what they did in Season 8 is they had to introduce a bunch of new, or okay, maybe not a bunch, they had to introduce new characters to try to fill in the roles that Mike's absence left in the show. Because you have, the core Suits was always Harvey and Mike. If you rip out Mike, then you lose half your show. Then they flailed uncontrollably to try to shove other characters into places they didn't belong. Except for Lewis. Lewis's story arc is the only redeeming quality of Season 8. The rest of it is garbage, and you need to gut it and start from scratch if you have any hope of fixing Season 8. Do you plan on making other YouTube reviews? Yep, plenty of projects in production, even beyond Incredibles 2. Toy Story 3, Ralph Breaks the Internet, The Halo Show, plenty of media I've yet to cover that I either want to praise or tear to shreds. Would you split the channel between gaming channel and review channel? Well, I think that question's already been thoroughly answered in my August update. What are your favorite songs in Cuphead? People have asked me this before, and I always struggle to provide a satisfying answer because the entire Cuphead soundtrack is just such an orgasmic masterpiece. It's the same problem I have ranking the fourth phase of the MCU, but for the exact opposite reason. I've come to really like the main theme for Delicious Last Course, even more so than the original theme song. As far as boss themes go, I'd probably say Flow of Fury is my favorite from World 1, Carnival Kerfuffle is my favorite from World 2 despite coming from the worst boss, Shootin' and Lootin' from World 3, and High Noon Hoopla from the DLC world would be my favorite songs from Cuphead. What is your favorite color? Blue. Love blue. Specifically light blue and cyan colors. Darker blues are pretty neat too, but I'm a sucker for anything and everything that has a light blue or cyan tint to it. Everything I have, my phone case, my iPad case, my color scheme on my computer, you may notice my profile picture is blue. I don't know, I just love blue. Pretty neat color. What is the easiest game you've played? So I was gonna discount things like Gone Home, where that's entirely story-driven and there's no traditional gameplay or challenges to generate difficulty from. Honestly, it'd probably be the Cars game. I mean, you might think it'd be something like Curious George, but hey, you know what? There are some challenges in Curious George that are more difficult than you might think. There are some specifically platform challenges that will probably take you a couple tries. But in Cars, it's really not all that hard to stay in first place the whole time, even on the hardest difficulty. It's fun to play, it's fun to race, or even just drive around the open world, but it is by no means a challenge. And then inversely, what is the hardest game you've ever played? Discounting games where the difficulty stems from indefensibly broken or unfair bullshit, likes of which you'll find in games like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, and the Ori duology. It's honestly probably Cuphead. I mean, not anymore, because nowadays I can play through the game on solo, regular difficulty, without any issues at all, but tackling the game for the first time, even playing through the DLC for the first time, is just it's a brutal challenge, but for all the right reasons, except for when they flip the screen on you for no reason whatsoever. But beyond that, it's Cuphead. Cuphead is what is a shining example of difficulty in games, for that type of game, I should say. The difficulty stems from good places, not from bullshit like you'll find in other games. If you were in charge of the MCU, but couldn't reboot it or restart it, what would you do to make it good again? Step 1 would be to contain Loki in its own vat of stupidity. I don't care if I have to decanonize it or just make it all somebody's dream. Loki cannot exist, or the rest of the MCU and all previous MCU movies are screwed forever. I would stop reviving characters because doing so erases any tension. I would fire all the writers and get new ones who actually know how to balance comedy and drama properly. I would slow down the release schedule to 1, maybe 2 movies per year. Probably just 1 movie and 1 show so they can really put all their effort into making that one thing phenomenal rather than spreading all over the place and making a flurry of crap. I'd sit down for a long time and figure out how to make every character's powers consistent and not overpowered, because there is a serious issue right now where I do not understand the limits of so many characters' magical abilities. Both because there seem to be no limits to what they can do and because they just keep inventing new skills and because they don't even use the skills they do have to accomplish the simplest of tasks. And I'd start making progress to slowly reverse the assassination of beloved characters, but it would take a long time to fix the MCU in the state that it's in right now without just erasing all of Phase 4. So, yeah, that's what I'd say about that. What do you think is the unfunniest type of joke? Any kind of toilet humor? I didn't laugh at it as a kid, and I find it even less funny as an adult. Even the best movies, sadly, are not immune to them, and I don't like it at all. What character in FNAF is your favorite? The problem is that in terms of characters, not just animatronics, by the time their games really started fleshing out characters, it was almost time for them to die, and I'm not counting anything from Security Breach as a FNAF character. That game can burn in a fire. Not that fire affects anything in this universe. Baby/Elizabeth is pretty cool, as is Henry's daughter in The Puppet. I don't really have any strong feelings towards any of them, honestly. I was always really invested in deciphering the backstory and the lore until Security Breach. I was really satisfied to see the characters get their closure, but I still wouldn't say I was super invested in any one particular character. Do you prefer it to be daytime or nighttime? Daytime, 100%. I always have been and always will be a morning person. One of the things I hated about how screwed up my life became as a result of making Danganronpa 3 was just how much my sleep schedule was destroyed. I stayed up through all hours of the night, sometimes for upwards of 48-hour periods of time to get that series done. And as a result, I spent almost the entire summer trying to get my sleep schedule back on track. I would wake up so late in the morning and not be tired enough to fall asleep until like 2 or 3 a.m. It was terrible. I just love how everything in the world looks when the sun is glinting off of it at sunrise. It's just such a great feeling when you wake up as the sun rises, and it just really gets me in a great mood to start my day. I spent a long time fixing my sleep schedule ever since May of last year. I almost fell off that with Toy Story 4, and I pulled an all-nighter or 2 since then, but my sleep schedule is still very much intact, and I really would like to keep it that way forever, because I don't like being a night owl. I don't like that at all. What is your favorite type of plant? I have absolutely no feelings towards plants whatsoever, so I choose Planty the Potted Plant from Phineas and Ferb. Do you think Apollo Justice could be fixed? Fixed as in the damage undone? Then, yeah. Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice did that really well. Fixed as in the game itself rewritten to not be garbage? Also probably yes. There are circumstances that could lead Phoenix and Emma to the states that they're in, but you gotta put in a lot more legwork than they did to make that work. And plot-wise, we can definitely patch up the hole, so yeah, I'd say Apollo Justice could definitely be fixed. What's your top 10 good characters in awful games? Never really thought about that before. Trucy Wright, she's like the one good thing about Apollo Justice. Maki, which as I say that out loud, I'm realizing it's suddenly become a cursed name. She's pretty interesting in V3. Himiko's alright. Yeah. Kamaru and Toko's dynamic in Ultra Despair Girls is its sole redeeming quality of that game. Buck, Vale, Tanaka, and Locke from Halo 5 are all pretty neat. I mean, it sounds really bizarre because in Halo 5, Locke is just a nothing character, as is the rest of Osiris and the entirety of Blue Team. I mean, honestly, but the thing is, most of Osiris is pretty interesting. Locke especially is a very interesting character. It's just that Brian Reed is incompetent and failed to write any of them properly. And it makes me sad to see that 343's main takeaway from Halo 5 seems to have been no more Locke in anything ever, which was not the correct course of action to take. But 343 taking the correct course of action is about as common as a good Spike Chunsoft game, so you know. Yumi's nice. She's also literally the only character apart from myself from that game that I can actually remember, so take that for what you will. Would you rather play every game in the Danganronpa universe and watch Danganronpa 3, or play Sonic Adventure 2? I would rather play everything in Danganronpa again. I really don't know that I can find the words to express to you how truly awful Sonic Adventure 2 is. I hate that game so much. It's just so bad in every aspect, and I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy. Even if I'm not allowed to use the auto text feature in Danganronpa to skip all the dialogue, it would still be less painful than playing Sonic Adventure 2 ever again. Have you played any New Blood games? No. Have you played any Punch-Out games? No. Thoughts on Valve's Source games? I haven't played most of them. I'm pretty sure the only Valve-made Source games I've played are Garry's Mod, which I've never had a good time playing, Team Fortress 2, which I very much do not like, and the Portal Duology, which are some of the best puzzle games ever made. I've always wanted to get into Half-Life, but I'm also actively avoiding them because I know that there's a massive cliffhanger that's never been resolved, hence the whole Half-Life 3 meme, and I'm not too keen on jumping into a story that I know doesn't have and likely will never have a resolution. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Valve Source games, I guess. Have you played H-Rots? No, don't even know what that is. Have you played Hypno Space Law? No. I have not. Opinions on level design or music of Super Mario 64. Well, the music's awesome, obviously, but I don't define the quality of a game by how good its music is. It can be a lovely compliment to the experience so long as the substantive elements hold up on their own, but they can never save a bad game from being awful. As for the level design, none of it impresses me. Navigating most of them is a pain, except for Womp Fortress, but even the best of level design is ruined by just awful camera and controls. Am I into lost media and or pieces of lost media that I'd really love to have been found? Not really. I didn't even know that lost media was a massive movement that had a good chunk of people rallying behind it. I'm pretty sure my only exposure to lost media is the quote-unquote lost episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, but it sounds interesting. I'll give it that. Favorite and least favorite shines from Super Mario Sunshine? Well, for favorites, it's a pretty short list. The roller coaster shine's pretty neat. The one where you're battling the big Bowser robot, like that one a lot. The Cage Shine Sprite, pretty fun platforming challenge. Any level where you don't have FLUDD and it's a separate self-contained platforming challenge, that's great. I love those levels a lot. As far as least favorite goes, my least favorite shines include the utterly indefensible King Boo boss that boils down to nothing but RNG. I don't know what they were thinking with that. Other contenders would definitely be the I'm a Chuckster mission, the red coins in the water, specifically trying to get back onto the dock. The Pachinko level is actually broken. Don't play it unless you want to get 100%, but why would you do that to yourself? And I despise the final level in Corona Mountain. Not even because of the boss, but because of the atrocious boat physics. I don't hate Sunshine. Well, I hate a lot of Sunshine, but there's a lot of good in Sunshine that I can look fondly upon. But man, I hate a lot about that game. Have you watched Main and Point Richmond? No. I have not. What are some games you don't like but everyone else does that were not in my top 20 worst games video? Well, I alluded to Team Fortress 2 earlier. People love that game. Never enjoyed playing it, ever. Same with Garry's Mod. People fawn over that game, but anytime I've tried to do anything on it with friends, it just ends in boredom and pain. A Hat in Time was a platformer that legitimately made me motion sick, and I hate it a lot, but the world thinks it's amazing. Aviary Attorney is just a bad version of Ace Attorney that seems to go out of its way to try to act superior towards it in some instances. Borderlands, I guess I don't really hate Borderlands, and I have gotten some fun out of playing Borderlands 2 specifically with Forgetful Gal when we were in high school, and at the moment, it seems like Nirvana Initiative would qualify considering how people are fawning over that game, despite its plot quite possibly being on par with Lightyear in terms of how awful it is. But I pretty much listed all of them in my video. Have I played any of the Metal Gear games? No, I have not. What's a piece of media that you swear existed, but when you looked up years later, you found nothing? I have literally never experienced this once. Anytime I thought to myself, hey, wasn't this a show I watched as a kid? I was able to find it easily. For instance, Todd World. I never watched the show consistently, but there was a bonus episode that I distinctly remembered called Sophie's Sinking Feeling, which was on one of the Bob the Builder DVDs that I had, so I looked up that episode one day when I just randomly remembered it and found the show that it came from very quickly. I'm curious to see if anyone else remembers the show existing, because I don't really see anyone mention it ever, but no, I've never invented an imaginary show in my head. Favorite and least favorite Disney movie? If it's strictly out of Disney and not Pixar, then Aladdin is my favorite, and Ralph Breaks the Internet is my least favorite. If we include Pixar, Toy Story 3 is my favorite, and Toy Story 4 is my least favorite, as demonstrated in my top 20 best and worst movies list. Where did you learn about film? I didn't. I never studied film anywhere. I took several film classes in high school, and they were all a colossal waste of my time. All they taught in that class were basic editing skills, which were things that I learned when I was 6 years old, and how to physically operate a camera, which any idiot can figure out for themselves. So I honestly think going to film school is a complete waste of your money and time, because then you end up with A, lot of debt, and B, you end up becoming an elitist snob who says things like, excuse me, what college did you attend? Because, you see, I attended the most elite film school in the country, so I have vastly more knowledge than you could ever dream to about the art of film. You don't understand movies on a deeper level. No, shut the fuck up. I don't care. If you have the passion and drive, you don't need to waste your money on a film school to do what you want to do. You want to know a director that never went to film school? Steven Spielberg. Yeah. him. Yes, he did eventually get a degree in film and electronic arts, but that was in 2002, which was a long time after he made some of his most iconic movies ever. So, and I think, didn't Christopher Nolan, I'm pretty sure, never went to film school? Quentin Tarantino never went to film school? Like, you don't need, I promise you don't need to go to film school. You're just gonna waste your money and your time. If you have the passion and drive, you don't need it. Whether you want to review movies or you want to make movies, I can promise you will learn infinitely more by just watching movies and learning from them. Study them. Look at the scripts and see what makes them work. What is the structure of those stories and how do they all link? How do they link plot threads together? How do they structure character arcs? And then study that, figure that out, and then apply the knowledge that you learn from that into your own scripts. Or for reviewers, use the knowledge you gain from that experience to help you consistently assess the quality of movies moving forward. That's how I learned about movies. I just watched them ever since I was a little kid. And as I grew up, I started thinking more and more critically about the things that I was watching, and I compared the things that I liked to the things that I didn't to try to figure out what the discrepancies were, and my ability to articulate that distinction has only improved with each passing year, and it's not because I went to some stupid film school. It's because I'm extremely passionate about the things that I talk about, and I just learned a lot by watching movies. Same thing with games. I've learned a lot about games by just playing them. So yeah, that's my film school rant for the day. Hope you enjoyed. Who are frequent YouTubers you watch? The list used to be massive. I used to watch so many different YouTubers when I was a kid, but to be honest, I just do not have the time to consistently keep up with everybody's videos anymore. The YouTubers that I frequently watch, as in every time that they upload a new video, I either watch it immediately or make it a high priority for me to watch as soon as possible, are The Act Man, found him through his Halo 5 stuff, and he's made consistently great stuff ever since. Markiplier, obviously, YouTube legend. Jacksepticeye, another YouTube legend. As far as underrated people, because obviously you're like, yeah, The Act Man, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, all the big names that everybody knows. What about the really niche YouTubers that you don't see get talked about a lot? Well, I have some recommendations for you there as well. HokeyBird428. Man, that's such a great channel. He doesn't make content very much anymore, but if ever he releases a video or starts a stream, I will immediately click on his notification without hesitation. Even if I'm watching another video, I'll drop that other video, forget that video and go watch his instead. Because it is because of him that I am as passionate about Halo as I am. Because it's only thanks to his videos that I learned how to play the campaigns on Legendary at the highest level of skill and actually play the games tactically and strategically and not just play like a mindless run and gun shooter and get myself killed over and over again. Because for years, I was afraid to turn the difficulty up to Legendary. I just played on normal, and I played it like an idiot because you can't play Halo like you play Call of Duty. You just can't. You can't mindlessly run and gun through the levels without a care in the world. I mean, I guess on easy you can, but that's easy mode. For those high difficulties, you can't just run and gun. You gotta play tactically, you gotta play strategic, you gotta really have a good understanding of the game that you're playing to exceed at that. And it's thanks to him that I have the understanding of how Halo works as well as I do. So, shout out to him. And probably my favorite YouTuber on this platform is Thomas J. Ashwell and Thomas J. Vlogs. It's the same person, two different channels, one's Let's Plays, one's Vlogs. He is quite literally my inspiration. Were it not for his videos, I would not be on this platform today making content for you all to watch. Because when I watched him when I was a kid, and I realized this is a guy with a capture card, a microphone, and a video game he enjoys or doesn't enjoy. He's making videos with just that. And I said, I can do that. And so I did. And the rest is history. You should go check him out and show him some support. Tell him I sent you. Why not? He's an incredibly underrated YouTuber, and he deserves so much more attention than he gets. So yeah, those are the list of the most frequent YouTubers that I watch. In fact, it was his last year he continued his Let's Play of Sonic 06, and those videos were what I was watching while making my Toy Story 4 videos. So just a little anecdote that I threw in there for good measure. What's your ranking for the Child's Play / Chucky franchise? I haven't seen anything from that franchise, so I wouldn't know. Felt a regular show? Never seen it. What do you think of the Men in Black trilogy? I don't have a super emotional attachment to them, but I really like the first movie. I rewatched it before I watched Men in Black International, and I forgot how good that movie was, because I saw the trilogy as a kid, didn't really remember much of it, outside of just vague story details, but rewatching the first movie before I saw Men in Black International, I was like, man, this is really, really good. I forgot how good this movie was. Pretty solid stuff. I would need to rewatch the second and third movies to be sure, but from memory, the second movie's crap, and the third movie's decent with some genuinely charming scenes, but again, I don't remember much about those two movies. I remember more from the third than the second movie, which I guess is an indicator that I like the third a lot more than the second, but again, I don't know. How do you feel about the Sherlock Holmes movies? Never seen it, but I don't really feel the need to because I only know of Sherlock Holmes, not this imposter Sherlock Holmes. Which is better, the films or series starring Benedict Cumberbatch? The only thing I've seen from Benedict Cumberbatch are the Marvel-related projects that he's been in, so I don't know of any shows that he's in I can compare it to. What do you think of Steven Universe? Asked by multiple people. I've never seen Steven Universe. I've heard things. I've heard many things about Steven Universe, but I've never actually watched the show for myself. What I have done is listen to some of the music, specifically Nate Wants to Battle's covers of Steven Universe songs. Stronger Than You, Comet, Other Friends, Drift Away, Happily Ever After, just to name a few, are all great songs, and I've listened to them probably hundreds of times ever since his cover album came out. I still have no desire to watch the show, though. What's your least favorite color? I don't think I really have one. Like, I don't really hate any colors. I can come up with potential answers like, I don't know, gray, because gray is so inherently dull. But then I can think of scenarios where gray actually looks really great in a certain environment. So I think any color can look really aesthetically pleasing, depending on the surrounding design and the color palette that surrounds it. Do you have Lego sets? I have a couple that I've held on to for sentimental value, but I had so goddamn many of them as a kid. I loved building Lego sets. Mostly Indiana Jones Lego sets. That tended to be what I got a lot for birthday presents, was Lego Indiana Jones sets. I generally might have had every single one that had ever been made, save for maybe one or two. I also had a lot from the Lego Movie, some Batman ones, some SpongeBob ones, some Toy Story 3 ones, just some general Lego builds like houses and stuff. I loved Legos. I honestly thought about picking up Legos as a hobby again. The problem is that Legos are expensive and time consuming, so yeah, I don't know. I'd like to one day, but yeah, I had a lot of Legos as a kid, just not so much anymore. Were you inspired by Mahler? My inspiration for starting YouTube, as previously mentioned, is Thomas J. Ashford. Go check him out, he's great. As for the YouTuber that served as my inspiration for these types of analysis videos that I produce, I really took after the Ackman style initially more than anything else. Although, for my very first analysis video, which was my Dragons of 3D video, I really just kind of flew by the seat of my pants and structured it based on how I thought it should be. I didn't know what I was doing, so I think, considering all that, I still made my proudest creation on this channel is that Dragons of 3D video. Just seeing so many comments on that video from people saying that they never heard of the game and they wanted to check it out and they played it and loved it. I'm like, great, I did my job. That's amazing. I'm glad you enjoyed this game. That's what I wanted. That's all I wanted to do, was bring it to more people's attention, I guess what I'm trying to say. So that wasn't really styled out to anyone in particular, but for my more recent stuff like Toy Story 4 and Danganronpa 3, I saw the Ackman's original Halo 5 review, and what he was doing with that review was a chronological breakdown. I'd never seen it before, where he goes chronologically, beat by beat, scene by scene, and he stops to, if ever he needs to explain why something doesn't make any sense, or he deviates into a bit of a side topic if it builds off what's currently happening in the story. And I'd never seen that style before in a previous YouTube video, and I was like, man, that's a really effective way to critique a show or movie, to go chronologically and then use that as a branching off point into smaller topics, deviating from the main story. That's a great idea. I should do that. So I'd say Ackman was more my inspiration than anything else. Favorite snack? Pretzels. Pretzels and Sprite make for a great combination. Opinion on Surf's Up. Tried watching it as a kid, but I was so bored that I just shut it off and never tried to watch it again. Best roller coaster you've ever been on? That is a great question, because I've ridden so many amazing roller coasters throughout my life, but I'm gonna give the victory to Hagrid's Motorcycle Adventure at Islands of Adventure in Orlando. Most roller coasters I love can consistently give me the adrenaline rush that I'm looking for, but basically no roller coasters can surprise me anymore. When I went to Universal with Forgetful Gal in August last year, we rode the Velocicoaster there as well, and that was fine. It was a fun coaster, it's really thrilling, worth the wait, but nothing about it was anything I couldn't see coming. It was all very, very by the books. I mean, there was one cool part where you kind of corkscrew and your head is inches away from the water below you. That was pretty neat, but for the most part, it's like, it's just your standard roller coaster. Very fun, liked it a lot, but nothing mind-blowing. But this one, Hagrid's Motorcycle Adventure, this one took me by surprise. I had no idea what was around every corner, and it wasn't even like, because some roller coasters that happen in an indoor environment where you can't see the track in front of you, obviously if it's dark you're not gonna be able to see what's gonna happen next, but this was out in the open in daytime. I still didn't know what was gonna happen. The track was constantly switching around. They would drop you below the ground. The way you felt the wind rush over you because of how the cars are designed. So good. I loved it so much. I rode it for the first time with Forgetful Gal last August, and I just immediately declared it as my favorite coaster I've ever ridden. So good. Okay, so I got a lot of questions from someone asking a lot of top 20 lists for top 20 underrated or overrated video games, underrated or overrated movies, animated cartoons, live action shows, just a bunch of this stuff. All these questions would warrant far too lengthy responses, unfortunately, but also mostly already answered. I mean, obviously there's things like Halo and Cuphead on my best lists that don't really count as underrated in the same way that Security Breach doesn't count as overrated, but a majority of the games on those lists do count as games that the world loves, that get way more love and adoration than they deserve, or get way more hate than they deserve. As well as for the movies on my list, there's some movies there that you don't see get talked about a lot, or see talked about in a positive or negative light when it's not deserving. And many of them are animated cartoons that would fit the category of underrated or overrated. As for top 20 best and worst live action TV shows, like I said earlier, I definitely plan on making a video going over that. Many of which will likely be considered underrated or overrated, but won't be exclusively for live action stuff. So most of this is either stuff I plan on covering in the future or still already covered. Just, I don't think I'd have the ability to do it in this video specifically. It would take too much time. Thoughts on Tom Hanks saying Toy Story 4 is one of the best movies he's ever seen? My thoughts are simply, obviously, like, of course that would happen. Tom Hanks is the star of Toy Story 4, and the origin of that quote comes from an interview on Jimmy Kimmel Live, my favorite person of all time, which was done specifically to promote the movie in question. That's why actors go on the shows, for marketing purposes.
It sounds ridiculous because I'm in it, but yeah. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life.
It is one of the best.
I don't know how to say it any other way.
In what dimension would Tom Hanks have ever gone on the show and said, yeah, guys, Toy Story 4 is quite literally the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Please never watch this movie, I'm begging you. Do you honestly think that ever would have happened? No, of course not. Pixar never would have allowed him to say something like that, and he knows better than to say something like that publicly to ruin his relationship with Pixar forever. Now, once he's far removed from the Toy Story franchise, and the press tour is long since concluded, that frees him up a little bit to, speak his mind about his feelings towards the creative decisions being made at Pixar, but I digress. Even if we assume he genuinely believes the movie is great, he was a part of the production of the film, so of course his view of it is going to be tainted. But even if we assume that he's removed his bias towards it and is running strictly objectively and saying it's a great movie, I still have no reason to care because there's no arguments he's provided beyond saying it's great. It's like, okay, cool, I can't respond to that, bye. What do you think of Poppy's Playtime? I watched Mark's Let's Play of the first chapter and was not interested in the game's premise enough to want to watch the second chapter. So, what do you think of the Sonic franchise? A comically inconsistent train wreck that oscillates between having games that are a blast to play and having games that are making you want to break your controller in half from how horrifically broken they are. I still have largely positive feelings towards Sonic as a whole, but honestly, that's been helped out significantly by the movies more so than the games. Who is your favorite SpongeBob character? Probably Squidward. His deadpan sense of humor has always made me laugh, even when I was a little kid. Do you wish Toy Story 4 could have been better? Yes, of course I wish it could have been better. I will happily jump over to the universe where Toy Story 4 is a competently written movie that doesn't assassinate the main characters of the original trilogy. What do you think of Amy? Annoying as hell, and based on the games I've played, her personality seems to boil down to nothing but Sonic! 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 Yeah, I can't say I'm a fan. Even if her story in Sonic Heroes was the only not terrible part of that otherwise awful video game, I still just don't really like her. Least favorite non-sequel Pixar movie. Do you count Lightyear as a sequel? I hate that movie so much, but if you don't count it because it's technically tangentially related to Toy Story, then in that case the honor goes to The Good Dinosaur. Turning Red at least gives me laughs, even if they're unintentional from the writers, but The Good Dinosaur is just legitimately a movie that I don't ever want to watch again for any reason. Favorite Nickelodeon show? I feel like it's gotta be SpongeBob SquarePants. Not judging it in its entirety because boy howdy did SpongeBob go on a drastic downward spiral after season 4, but based on the first 4 seasons that I watched as a kid and the movie, it'd definitely be my favorite. But if I'm forced to judge it in its entirety with all seasons ever, then I guess Avatar wins out because it's a more consistently well-written show than SpongeBob in its totality than SpongeBob is, because that got at least 5 or 6 seasons of garbage in its back half. Are you into Nintendo games? If so, what is your favorite franchise? I have LPs of many Nintendo games, and of the ones I've played, Mario Kart is probably my favorite franchise. Galaxy 2 and Odyssey are great and all, but the sheer amount of game nights I've had with friends playing Mario Kart just can't be topped. Who is your favorite Sonic character? From the games, Tails. Such a lovable, nerdy sidekick. From the movies, Knuckles. He's a riot to watch, and is actually treated with some level of intelligence and respect, unlike in the games. What's your favorite cartoon show? As I said on my top 20 best movies list, Phineas and Ferb wins in a landslide victory in that regard. I already went over it there. It's hilarious, it's engaging, and it's really emotionally compelling sometimes. It's one of the first shows I ever watched outside of preschool stuff like Blue's Clues, and I just love it to death. Would you make an antithesis of Toy Story 4 series for one of your favorite films? Well, I absolutely plan on making one for Toy Story 3 at the very least, but who knows? Maybe I'll end up covering more great films in the future. Anything's possible. Would you be okay if some people like Toy Story 4? Yes, of course. You are allowed to like Toy Story 4 for whatever reasons you like. I've had people ask me previously, oh, are you saying that I can't like Toy Story 4? No. When that is, in fact, never something that I have ever said, and I am, in fact, a proponent of the exact opposite sentiment, which is that you can enjoy Toy Story 4. I enjoy plenty of terrible films, and Cars 2 and Turning Red are primary examples of such a concept. There's nothing wrong with liking bad films. You're allowed to enjoy them. It's fine. Would you make analysis videos on other shows like Stranger Things, SpongeBob, or Phineas and Ferb? SpongeBob, no. I really have nothing insightful to say about SpongeBob other than that it's really funny and a blast to watch, and that the 2 recent movies are just steaming hot diarrhea. Phineas and Ferb, also no, because even though there are plenty of meaningful character moments throughout the series, and especially in the movies, other people on YouTube have already done a way better job breaking it down, so I have nothing to add. Now, Stranger Things is where things get a bit more interesting, because, to my utter astonishment, people think season season 3 of that show is great, or at the very least decent, to which I simply say, Stranger Things season 3 is terrible, and I hate it with a burning passion. Not only does none of it make any sense at all, and it's almost too ridiculous to take seriously, but it assassinates basically every single character. Watching season 4 systematically repair them all has made me want to make a video ripping season 3 apart, but I'm not promising anything yet. I may wait until season 5 is out to make it, or I may just never make it at all, but of those 3 shows, I am most likely to make a series about Stranger Things, specifically season 3. And on the subject of Stranger Things, how big of a Stranger Things fan are you? I am a massive Stranger Things fan. It is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Definitely in the top 5, possibly the top 3. I adore everything about it, which is why season 3 pissed me off as much as it did, and why I'm so happy with how season 4 turned out in spite of some of its more questionable writing choices, to say the least. How big of a SpongeBob fan are you? I look upon SpongeBob very fondly. It's very smart comedy for the first 3 seasons, and the movie to a lesser extent in the 4th season, but honestly, I have a much stronger emotional attachment to the SpongeBob game, Battle for Bikini Bottom, than I do the show itself. Now, this person also asked the same question for both Stranger Things and SpongeBob, that being, if Josh Cooley was in charge of writing either season 5 of Stranger Things or a 4th SpongeBob movie, what would the outcome be and what would my reaction be? I really can't say what the outcome would be, because like I said in my Toy Story 4 series, Josh Cooley had a hand in writing the best of Pixar's catalog. He wrote Inside Out, and I firmly believe Toy Story 4 was the result of a blatant hatred of, or at the very least, horrific misunderstanding of, the series that he was writing for. So I think he does have talent, so if he understands Stranger Things and SpongeBob, maybe we get something good. Couldn't really tell you. I think there's a better chance he'd make a good SpongeBob movie than a good Stranger Things season, based on what he's written in the past, but who knows. Do you ever think about making an analysis series of Sponge on the Run? Not really. Other reviewers have already torn that film to shreds. Anything I have to say would probably just be beating a dead horse. I don't really have much. Now, of course, you may think that about things like Toy Story 4, because it's like, obviously, Toy Story 4 came out years ago, or especially for Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2, I feel like, has gotten more critical pushback than Toy Story 4 does, so you may think I'm beating a dead horse there, but I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna have some things to say about Incredibles 2 that you may not have heard before, whereas for Sponge on the Run, everyone's already said it's a cash grab, that the plot is a meandering mess. It exists only to set up Camp Coral, which is disrespectful to Steven Hillenburg. Just I have nothing new to add to it, so I don't really have the passion to make an analysis series for it. Have you ever watched any Cartoon Network shows? Maybe? I think I vaguely remember watching old Tom and Jerry cartoons on Cartoon Network as a kid. Maybe? I'm not sure, but as far as Cartoon Network exclusive shows like Adventure Time with Steven Universe, no, I've never seen any of those. Have you ever watched any adult cartoons? I haven't seen anything like Rick and Morty or Simpsons or Family Guy. I've had tangential experiences with all of them. Like, I've played the Rick and Morty VR game, I played a bit of Simpsons Hit and Run, and I rode the Simpsons ride in Universal, and I saw that one Dragon's Lair clip from Family Guy, but never actually watched any of the shows. Do you have any favorite Stranger Things characters? So, my favorite Stranger Things character is in constant fluctuation because the quality of the writing is so frustratingly inconsistent. Like Hopper in seasons 1 and 2, top tier character. Intelligent, compassionate, and cool head. Hopper in season 3, a blithering, emotionally unstable idiot. Steve in season 1, literally the worst type of person. Steve in season 2, and especially by the end of season 4, actually the best character. Max in season 2, did nothing to impress me. Max in season 3, made me want to slap it with a dead fish. Max in season 4, made me fall in love with her character and was legitimately on the edge of my seat every time she was in danger. More so than I had felt in a long time watching a show. It's hard to nail it down with this stuff because of how all over the place the writing of the characters is. I guess the 3 characters who have been consistently endearing and masterfully acted are Will Byers, Dustin Henderson, and Steve Harrington. They're basically the only characters to escape season 3 unscathed by its awful writing. But if we just super score the characters and judge them at their absolute best, I basically love them all equally. There's nobody that I dislike from the show when they're at their best. What piece of Toy Story media is your favorite? Which is better, Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3? Well, Toy Story 3 is definitely better and is my favorite installment in the Toy Story franchise. It's close, admittedly. 2 and 3 are both fantastic films and they could trade punches with each other were it not for Toy Story 3's spectacular third act. They'd probably be tied, but that climax and ending just seals the deal. Toy Story 3 is unquestionably the best film of the trilogy. How would you make Toy Story 4? I would scrap it and start from the ground up. The core idea of the story they tried to tell absolutely cannot work no matter what. Woody would never leave his kid and family. It's that simple. That would just never ever happen. I'd make a story focused on one of the side characters or even just an entirely new group of toys. Woody and Buzz's story is complete and you don't need to drag it out any longer. What movies are in Pixar's future? You think they can recover? Thoughts on Turning Red? I have absolutely no idea what movies are in Pixar's future beyond Elementals, which is directed by the same guy who directed the legendary Good Dinosaur, so, my hopes are not high for that, but they can absolutely recover. They can easily recover. They don't have to continue the same story with each new installment, so they can just focus on on making really good standalone movies and ignoring the mistakes of the past. And if they start going back down the same streak they had going with Onward, Soul, and Luca before Turning Red broke the chain, I think they can absolutely recover. And I guess in answer to the question for my thoughts on Turning Red, it's very bad. Very, very bad. But I have no desire to make a video explaining why it's bad because I love watching it. I have such a blast laughing at the sheer stupidity of that movie that I harbor no negative feelings towards it whatsoever. How do you balance YouTube with college life? An extremely refined sense of time management. I've been a planner ever since I was in elementary school. I literally have a document called Daily Schedule that I update every day. Sometimes planning out a week in advance that outlines everything I need to do when at what times. Usually I make a bullet point list of this is everything I have to get done today, and then I turn that bullet point list into a proper time schedule, obviously factor in breaks, meals, and sleep so I don't kill myself from work overload. Are there any other phobias you have? No. Do you plan to take the Myers-Briggs test in the channel? I think this question's already been answered. Thoughts on the $20,000 Halo 2 challenge? Mad props to anybody that has the luck to be able to accomplish this. And I say luck because this has absolutely nothing to do with skill. Even if you play the game as strategically, cautiously as possible and you make zero mistakes, you are still guaranteed to get screwed over by the opening 5 seconds of the Gravemind mission, where if you get unlucky, you could still get killed immediately with nothing you can do to save yourself. It's insane. Because for those who don't know, the challenge is to complete Halo 2 all skulls on, which skulls are like difficulty modifiers to make things harder, on the hardest difficulty setting in one sitting, live, without dying once, which is borderline impossible because of the section I mentioned previously, and because the skulls do such great things as increasing enemy awareness, aggression, health, damage, turning off your HUD, cutting your ammo in half, turning off aim assists, just to name a few. And I've beaten Halo 2 on LASO. I've beaten all the games on Legendary with all skulls on, and I have the achievements to prove it, but I've never been able to do the entire game deathless on LASO, nor is that something that I ever would want to do, because it might actually mentally destroy me if ever I attempted that. How would you rate Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations, Sonic Lost World, and Sonic Forces? And what are your expectations for Sonic Frontiers? Colors and Generations are both 8 or 9 out of 10 games. The former is held back by copy-pasted padded levels, and the latter is held back by lackluster boss battles and just an absolutely awful final boss. I haven't played Lost World, but I've not heard great things, and for what little I've played of Forces, I enjoyed it somewhat, but story-wise, it was a disaster. But I'd certainly much rather play it that than Adventure 2 or Heroes. And then for Frontiers, I don't think it's gonna be good at all. The gameplay we've seen looks terrible. The rumors about the story sound disastrous. I don't think this game is gonna be good at all. I think it's gonna make all my efforts to play through the Sonic games this year completely worthless and build up to a whole lot of nothing. But I hope they prove me wrong. I really hope they do. Thoughts on LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga? Oh boy, what an absolute failure of a video game. It is a bug-filled mess because the game went through one of the worst development hells I've seen in a while. The pacing of mission objectives is completely out of whack. Did you guys love the part of Attack on the Clones where you suddenly become a waiter and have to deliver orders, only instead of there being any challenge whatsoever to it, you just look at the image, you grab the food, it's in the image, and then you deliver it to the customer who gave the image in the first place? Yeah, I love that part. It's my favorite. They literally do not have a level dedicated to destroying the second Death Star, but they definitely have one dedicated to walking all the way up the island that Luke disappeared to, which even the movie didn't show. It cut from the bottom to the top of the island because it understood pacing, and then slowly following him all the way around the island doing medial bullshit. And there's just so many of these slow-paced walking sections where nothing happens except characters saying dialogue is just copy-pasted from the movies. It gives you the ability to fly around in outer space between planets, but there's no point because there's nothing to actually do out there except for shooting the occasional ship that crosses paths with you. The Anakin vs. Obi-Wan fight is an embarrassment. The cover shooting is not what I play LEGO games for. Definitely not when they say defeat 30 stormtroopers before you move on. Mumble mode is just a joke because it's not designed around it, and the original games were way more creative and funny with how they chose to communicate information non-verbally, but they just didn't even try here because it's designed around voice acting, not around characters mumbling, which, by the way, that voice acting is very bad, and the people who did the voices clearly didn't understand the characters themselves or the situations the characters were in when they read the lines. And they just straight up lied when they marketed this game because you cannot play the movies in any order you choose. That's just incorrect. And if you're gonna say, oh, come on, it's a kid's game. Yeah, it's a kid's game that costs $50 where the overwhelming majority of sections have no gameplay whatsoever, just walking around doing random crap for a kids game, there sure do seem like a lot of sections that seem like a guaranteed way to bore the hell out of kids. And this is not a Lego game. It just is not. It's got cover shooter mechanics, Star Fox mechanics, RPG skill tree, side quest mechanics. None of that is what I play Lego games for. That's assuming you even get gameplay at all instead of just walking around doing random crap, and assuming the game doesn't bug out or just straight up crash on you. And don't blame the developers. It's not their fault. Just read up. I'll link in the description. Read up on this game's hellish development cycle and hellish management. This game is as bad as it is because of a horribly mismanaged company, not because of incompetent developers. This inhumane crunch is gonna keep happening, because they're gonna say, hey, this game made bank and it's going really well. We can do this again. And it'll totally be worth the diminished mental health and physical health for our employees. Great job, everybody. Just stellar as always. Keep encouraging this. I promise it's doing great things for the industry. God, I hate this game so much. If you could change one thing in gaming, what would it be? I would do away with the excessive monetization that has corrupted every facet of the industry, whether that's battle passes, loot boxes, or whatever. I hate it. I understand that some games limit microtransactions to purely cosmetic items, but that's not an excuse anymore. Because Halo Infinite's multiplayer, for as incredible as its base gameplay and map design is, the foundations of that game entirely revolve around trying to milk as much money out of you as possible. No longer can you just pick your favorite colors for your Spartan and unlock cool armor by playing the game and completing cool challenges. All the cool stuff is locked behind a paywall, and I'm just getting so sick of it. Short-term, profit-driven decisions are what is tanking games like this. Favorite and least favorite developer? I think my favorite's gotta be Alchemy Labs. I have loved every single game they've ever released. They've yet to miss the mark with any of them. Job Simulator, Rick and Morty VR, and Vacation Simulator have all been spectacular, with the last one being among my favorite games of all time. And while I haven't gotten the chance to play much of Cosmonious High yet, from what little I have played, I've had the dumbest, giddiest smile on my face, and I can't wait to play more. But I think my least favorite developer at this point, for as much as I shit talk Spike Chunsoft, is 343 Industries. Because Spike Chunsoft is incompetent, make no mistake, but they aren't the development studio solely responsible for my favorite video game franchise of all time. 343 is, and they keep fumbling the ball with every subsequent decision they make. If you want to hear a passionate rant on how much 343 has pissed me off lately, skip to the credits of my most recent Halo Infinite livestream. I used to give them the benefit of the doubt. Check the end of my Toy Story 4 series. I outright praised them in the final part of that. They have completely exhausted my patience, and I'm so sick of every product they release or update they put out either breaking more than they fix or just being broken in and of itself. They made a phenomenal campaign with Infinite. I am grateful, at the very least, for that, because it made the 6-year wait 100% worth it, and I will always be able to revisit it and have a good time. But it may also be the last Halo campaign I ever get, because they are driving the series into the ground. People don't care about the game anymore, as evidenced by the consistently dwindling player count both on Steam and Xbox, and if they don't get their shit together real quick, there may be no hope of salvation for the series, which really sucks. But you know what? Maybe it would be best for the series to end on the uplifting, emotionally satisfying note that Infinite left us with, instead of waiting to see whatever the hell else 343 could have potentially ruined. Your series on Toy Story 4 was fine, unless you were manipulating what happened in the movie to fit your argument a la CinemaSins, but did it really need to be 5 hours long? I feel like you could have excluded a lot of minor arguments, or at least explained them a lot quicker to not drag out the series to 5 times the length of the movie you were criticizing. Okay, so first of all, I manipulated nothing. The footage and audio clips are ripped directly from the movie, and if you watch that movie, you will see that everything I said is 100% accurate. Second of all, the series isn't actually 5 hours long, it's 6 hours long. Over 6 hours long, as a matter of fact. You're far too generous to me. But most importantly, I wasn't interested in only focusing on the big stuff. I wanted to create a series that demonstrated that literally every scene in that movie is fundamentally broken, and that's exactly what I did. Also, while you didn't give any examples of what my minor arguments were, I'd be fascinated to hear some of them, because things that may seem minor, like a driveway not being there, can have major implications for the story as a whole. If that driveway isn't there, the rest of the movie literally cannot happen in the manner that it does, because the opening act and scene can't happen, and it's only because of that scene that Woody gets to have this moment with Bo Peep, which is the jumping off point for his emotional journey of the film. You don't have to care about every single issue equally, but even the smallest of errors can have massive repercussions elsewhere. And as far as explaining things quicker goes, I spent the appropriate amount of time on everything I talked about. Some things are less important, so I talked about them for less time. Some things are more important, like character assassination or immoral messages and themes, until they get longer sections of the video dedicated to them. Unless you want me to just say, Jesse shouldn't be able to pop the tire. Moving along then, in which case I'm not doing that. I'm just not. These scenes are very complicated, and there's a lot of mechanics to individually break down about all of them. And I'm not interested in sacrificing the integrity of my script just for the sake of making the video shorter. Also, I'd much rather spend too much time on something than not enough time on something. In one scenario, I would present an argument to the fullest extent with tons of supporting references, and the biggest criticism that somebody could levy against me would be, it took too long. And in the other scenario, I barely qualify anything substantive about the argument in question, and the biggest criticism somebody could levy against me would be, you didn't explain your arguments at all. You just blew through a bunch of points without any evidence or supporting justifications for them. So yes, it did need to be as long as it was. I did not drag out the series to any degree. Maybe you might be able to find a handful of incredibly insignificant minor things I could have cut out, but at that point, the amount of time you would lose in the series would be so insignificant you may as well not even bother in the first place. Why do you care about kids' films like Toy Story 4? I know that sucks, but no need to make a 5-hour essay on it. Oh, I don't know, maybe because I have gallons of passion for things I talk about. I do not care if Toy Story 4 is a kids' film, and quite frankly, kids' movies are not immune to criticism. First of all, it's very insulting to the people that spend years of their lives making animated movies to minimize all that work to being just a silly kids' movie. Pixar's catalog is chock full of emotionally moving, airtight, meaningful movies that will dazzle the children of an audience but also connect with the adults on a much deeper level. They are capable of reaching these heights in the same way that they are capable of reaching the lows of Toy Story 4. They don't get a pass for being kids' movies. And like I said, I have passion for the subjects of my videos. Toy Story was the series that defined my childhood, and watching this movie was like watching everything I loved for all those years fall apart at the seams. Like returning to your childhood home after 9 years only to discover that a new family has moved in and they've just finished setting up detonation charges to destroy it, and all you can do is just sit there in agony as you watch it crumble to pieces all around you. And not everyone is going to share that same passion. I get that. But everyone on this planet has passion for something. I can guarantee you there is something. Maybe a movie, maybe a game, maybe a book, who knows, that you absolutely despise and would happily spend extended amounts of time criticizing it if you had the opportunity to do so. It may not be Toy Story, but there's something out there that fits the bill. For instance, Forgetful Gal hates The Last Airbender with a fiery passion. I also very much dislike that movie, but I have no emotional connection to it and I have no reason to actively hate its existence. But she does, so you won't see an extended teardown of The Last Airbender from me. But hey, you might see one from her. As for There Was No Reason to Make the Series, considering the fact that it has significantly boosted my channel and I've gotten what I can happily call hundreds of comments from people saying that they've always felt this way about Toy Story 4 but can never verbalize it, or that they always felt alone in their beliefs about it, or even just that it was a cathartic viewing experience, I'd say that there were plenty of damn good reasons to make that series, and if I had the chance to go back in time and make a different choice, I'd do the same thing I did once again. Super Mario 64 has not aged well, but do you really think it's worse than Secret Rings and goddamn Hello Neighbor? Yes, absolutely. I got further in both those games than I did in Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 is just insufferable to play. I mean, they all are, to be fair, but I got to the credits of Secret Rings, and at least got to the third act of Hello Neighbor. Can't say the same for Super Mario 64. I've never even beaten Bowser for the first time in that game, because I just can't be bothered to play it. It's just painful. Thoughts on Smash Bros? I don't play it. I played a little bit of World of Light when Ultimate came out, and I did a lot of the classic modes, and occasionally used to duel friends, but I haven't touched a Smash game in a very long time. It's probably been over a year, and the only reason I booted it up was to get a quick clip for a video. The last time I actually sat down to settle in and play it for a session was probably, I don't know, 2020 sometime. So yeah, not exactly a big Smash Bros fan. Just not a fan of fighting games in general. Favorite Ace Attorney OST? If the question is asking for my favorite overall soundtrack of the games, then the answer goes to Trials and Tribulations. If the question is asking for my favorite specific individual track from all the games, then the answer goes to Godot's theme. It works so well on two entirely different emotional levels depending on when the game chooses to play it. I don't know how they pull it off, but it is immaculate. Have you watched Star Trek? I've seen the 2009 and 2013 Star Trek movies, but nothing beyond that. And much like Star Wars, I don't really care for it at all. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. Thoughts on the Cuphead show? I've never seen it, but I've heard very mixed things from it. Some people say it's good, others not so much. From what few clips I've seen from trailers, I was not particularly impressed with the general tone of the story. But honestly, I'm much more concerned with the meta aspects of it and the fact that they split the first season in two to avoid having to pay their animators more, and just everything that's disgusting and slimy about that. And just Netflix is a company. I love Stranger Things, but damn, man, the decisions they make just screw over so many people, and it's the Cuphead show is just the embodiment of everything that Netflix has been coming under fire for recently. So I feel reluctant to watch it. Am I still planning the Apologetics critique? Not at the moment. I feel like I've said my piece on that game. I'm just kind of tired of talking about it. Maybe when it gets released on Switch, or sorry, let me rephrase. If it gets released on Switch, it'll reignite my passion and I'll feel motivated to make the series or the video again. But for now, I have other projects I want to work on. So no, I'm not really working on that. No. Favorite candy? Sweet Tarts. Never really been a candy person, though. It's part of why I never really liked Halloween as a kid. And it was cool to dress up as Indiana Jones or Woody or something like that, but the main appeal for Halloween for a lot of kids was candy, and I just was never into that at all. I mean, I still had a bucket that I carried around and went trick-or-treating, but not to get the candy. It was like, I wasn't gonna eat any of it. I mean, what I did do, I did bring the bucket to, I think it was my dentist, and I don't know what the deal was. They had a deal where it was like, if you bring us your Halloween candy, we'll give you something. I don't know if they gave money or if they gave prizes out or something. There was some kind of deal where they didn't want you eating your candy because dentists, so if you brought it in, depending on how much the bucket weighed and how much candy there was, they would give you something. I don't know if it was a money payout or whatever it was, but it was something like that. I definitely did that, but that was the appeal of Halloween, not the actual candy itself. So the one candy that I did eat every once in a while, but I haven't eaten for a few years, is Sweet Tarts. Occasionally, I had Smarties. In fact, specifically in my 8th grade Algebra 1 class, before the end of year, like standardized testing or whatever, or before the exam, that teacher specifically would always give out a roll of Smarties to all the students. She would tell everybody that Smarties actually make your brain a little bit smarter. And people bought it. I never did because I understand how science works, so I was like, you're full of shit. But I'll take the candy. Thanks for the free candy. I mean, I won't complain about this. I think it was more of a mind over matter thing, where it's like, it's trying to convince people that if you believe in the power of the candy, it'll make you smarter. Or maybe it was just more of a motivational boost before you took the I don't know what the thought process was. I don't think she actually wanted to convince people that candy makes you smarter. I think it was more of a mind over matter thing, but whatever. Point is, favorite candy is Sweet Tarts, but I'm not a really big candy guy anyway, so take that for what it's worth. If you had the willpower to do this, would you A, continue to release full playthroughs and live streams on your channel, or B, cut all your playthroughs or live stream highlights into one video? I do not have the time to edit my full playthroughs of games down into highlight reels. The security breach video was the exception to the rule because I was on a mission to show off the greatest hits of how broken that game was. That was a one-time thing. For regular Let's Plays, I'd much rather just play through the whole game from start to finish. What is your favorite fruit? Bananas. One of my most frequent breakfasts is toast and a banana. Most of the fruits I consume through other forms, be it strawberry milkshakes or orange juice, things like that. I think I also liked oranges as a kid, but I haven't had an actual orange in probably almost 15 years, honestly. Will you give previous series that you stopped playing a second playthrough? Not a chance in hell. If a game was so horrifically bad like Shadow the Hedgehog I didn't even bother to finish it, then you know something went catastrophically wrong somewhere along the way. Or I guess most recently, AI the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. No second chance will be given out to those games anytime soon. Have you watched Breaking Bad / Better Call Saul? If not, do you plan to? Love to hear your thoughts on them. Not really. Everybody tells me Breaking Bad specifically is one of the greatest TV shows ever made, but I just have zero desire to watch it, honestly. I mean, I already know how it ends, so it doesn't help my motivations, but it just doesn't seem like something that interests me. Better Call Saul, maybe, because I think Better Call Saul is more of a legal drama than anything. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's it's supposed to be the spin-off show where it's more of the story of a criminal lawyer that ties into the Breaking Bad somehow. I don't know, but I don't. If I was gonna watch one of those two shows, it'd probably be Better Call Saul, but I still don't really want to watch either of them. What would it take for you to hate a movie more than Toy Story 4? I don't think that's realistically possible. There's no piece of media on this earth that's more linked to my heart than Toy Story. I seriously doubt that there'd ever be anything to dethrone that. Then again, I guess I better not jinx it. What do you think of Milo Murphy's Law? So, Milo Murphy's Law Season 1 was a great show. Not only was I just laughing just as hard as I did during any given episode of Phineas and Ferb, but I was also genuinely intrigued by the overarching story that was going on in the background. Liked it a lot. Would recommend Season 1 to everybody. Then Season 2 happened, and it started strong with a crossover. Loved the crossover. Lovely stuff. Except for the part where Isabella got absolutely nothing to do until the very end, as if they just forgot she was a character, which sucks, but other than that, fantastic stuff. And then the rest of Season 2 just perpetually went downhill. Why? Well, because Disney failed to market the show properly. I don't know if it's because they didn't believe in it, or they didn't like it, or what, but they did not put the same amount of effort into pushing the show onto people that they did for Phineas and Ferb, and that is clear as day. So, in an attempt to bring in more people, they started relying a lot on bringing in characters from Phineas and Ferb very consistently, like Perry and Doofenshmirtz, with Doofenshmirtz taking up a frustrating amount of Season 2 screen time specifically. And it's not that I don't like Doof, he's great. One of my favorite characters in the show, actually. Loved his growth throughout the series. But if I wanted to see Doofenshmirtz, I would just go watch Phineas and Ferb. I'm watching Milo Murphy's Law to see Milo, Zach, and Melissa. So stop shoving characters from your more popular show in. It's just tanking the writing of Milo Murphy's Law. If they committed to the style of Season 1, they could have had something great here. But I still haven't finished Season 2 because I just don't care anymore. I'll get around to it one day, and maybe the back half of season 2 is a masterpiece, but I seriously doubt it. What is the funniest joke you've ever heard? Probably something John Mulaney said. I've rewatched his Netflix comedy specials so many goddamn times I've lost count. In fact, I just rewatched them very recently, actually. This man is a riot. I don't know if you can tell that I'm a fan of him based on the clips I've used throughout my videos. I'm trying to think of the biggest laugh he's got out of me. I think I go for just his entire bit about airports. It's a part of his New in Town Netflix special, and I just cackle at it every single time. You'll know when you get to it when he has the opening line of this.
And now when I'm not with my girlfriend, you can still do anything to me. I will tolerate any treatment.
From that point onward to the point where he says,
so it's better.
That chunk. There's a lot of stuff from, there's the one thing you can't replace story. There's talking about his parents being lawyers. There's the real estate bits where he says like,
with 3 children and 9 on the way, and a max budget of $7.
There's the one where he makes fun of making an alphabet, happy birthday sign. The Bill Clinton story he told. The horse in a hospital. There's so many great jokes he's told throughout his specials. I think if I have to pick one, it's probably going to be the airport one, but man, he's really smart comedian. Who is your least favorite YouTuber? Probably CinemaSins or CinemaWins. They're 2 threads in the same stitch. They're 2 sides of the same coin. They're both channels predicated on either praising or criticizing every movie no matter what. Which, I mean, if a CinemaSins video is about Rise of Skywalker, it's probably going to arrive at a handful of comments and criticism. In the same way that a CinemaWins video about Soul is probably going to be good, but the thing is, sometimes they don't even criticize or praise the movies that deserve it correctly. But the problem starts to arise when you get to a CinemaSins video on something like The Incredibles and a CinemaWins video on something like Black Widow, because they only have to blindly praise or criticize, and they have no room for nuance, and it's either everything wrong with or everything great about. You end up just making things up and labeling points of praise or critique that are just vapid and meaningless. I watched a Space Jam 2 video out of curiosity, the CinemaSins one, and I was just like, okay, can we get to the criticism soon? It shouldn't be hard to criticize Space Jam 2. Where is it? This is just meaningless, meandering nonsense so far. I'm sure they're lovely people, but I hate their videos. What do you consider to be the most underrated TV show? I don't know if I can consider Suits to be underrated since it got 9 seasons on the air, but I never see it get talked about, so, Suits, I guess. Go watch Suits. It's amazing. Very good, except season 8, which we don't talk about. What is your favorite number? For a very long time, I would have told you it was 13 for obvious reasons, but ever since about 4.5 years ago, it's 45. What is your favorite running gag? The, what did you think it was just gonna fall out of the sky thing from Phineas and Ferb is great, and it has really nice sense of escalation and self-awareness as the seasons go on. I'm really glad they brought back that joke back for the new movie, Candace Against the Universe. What are your thoughts on the Toy Story tunes and TV specials? Hawaiian Vacation's really great. Small Fry isn't much of anything. Partysaurus Rex isn't particularly good. Toy Story of Terror is spectacular, and Toy Story Time Forgot is bad. It's just a lazy repeat of Buzz's arc, but without any of the fleshed out world building and quality writing to support it. The whole thing runs on just idiotic character decisions and a crap ton of contrivance, but, you know, at least the characters are intact, so that's something. What is your favorite thing in the whole wide world? Spending time with people that I love. I know it sounds corny, but it's true. I've always said that the thing that makes life worth living is the people you choose to spend it with, and not much makes me happier than spending quality time with the people I love in my life. Top 10 video game endings. Okay, I'm gonna blitz through this because I feel like you kind of already know the answers, and some of them I can't go into without spoilers. Beginner's Guide, would never spoil it. Go play it, it's amazing. Persona 5 Royal, I mean, a lot of these, you're either gonna get the waterworks out of me or just gonna round things out in a satisfying way. Persona 5 Royal does both, gives you a satisfying conclusion and gets the waterworks going as a kind of farewell. Pizzeria Simulator is just like spine-chilling in terms of how perfect of a conclusion that is to the series. Thanks Security Breach for reading that, by the way. Portal 2, no tears are shed, but it's a really wholesome conclusion, and it brings a smile on my face every time. Walking Dead Final Season, which is the last piece of Walking Dead content featuring Clementine to ever been made. There were never any comic books that proceeded to completely assassinate her character. We don't talk about it. Just got the waterfalls out of me every time. Love how it brings Clementine's story to a close. Grace Attorney 2 Resolve. I have not cried that hard at a video game since I played Halo 4, which, by the way, Trials and Tribulations also got the tears out of me, but not as much as saying things like Halo Infinite, Halo 4, and Halo 3. Just so many great game endings that round things out in a nice way or elicit a really strong emotional reaction out of me. And I don't want to go into specifics because, well, spoilers. Where would Pablo the Penguin fit in my most hated characters list? I think he'd probably go at the top, if only because of how condescending Pablo Schreiber's acted towards the Halo show's detractors. I hate him. He's not Master Chief. He doesn't talk or act anything like him, and the fact that he's tricked people into thinking that it's a better rendition of the character than the games and books solely because we see his face more is laughably pathetic and infuriating. But then, you'll get to hear about all of that and more in my Halo series. Favorite song from Undertale? Ignoring the obvious, of course. I find it very hard to pick one because just like Cuphead, the entire soundtrack is just so incredible, but probably Spear of Justice if I'm forced to pick just one. I love a lot of them. I love a lot of the soundtracks so much, but I gotta commit to one. I'm gonna go with Spear of Justice. Favorite movie scores? Obviously the Toy Story trilogy stands out in that regard. Indiana Jones is a great one, Back to the Future, Cloud Chance of Meatballs, Home Alone, Duology, Incredibles, Inside Out, anything Michael Giacchino's ever done except for Lightyear. There's tons of great film scores out there. I don't wanna, I feel like if I list some, I'm gonna leave a lot out, but those are the ones that I immediately think of. Games you have the most mixed feelings towards? I think Halo 2 is probably the perfect embodiment of this idea because it's a masterpiece of a story contrasted against just dog shit level design and gameplay. The complete polar opposite ends of the spectrum, which is why whenever I want to say that I hate or love Halo 2, I'm like, do I though? When I say I hate Halo 2, I'm like, no, but the story's so good though. And then I say I love Halo 2, and I think to myself, no, you don't. You want to die every time you play it. So it's a very love-hate relationship that I have with Halo 2. Would you have hated Toy Story 4 as much if it was a standalone movie? I wouldn't have hated it as much, no, because I wouldn't have had any attachment to the characters. I still would have criticized them all for being idiots, but at least I wouldn't have felt betrayed watching their personalities be completely contradicted. But it would still be a bad movie regardless because the plot is still broken on the most fundamental of levels. And finally, we arrive at a very simple question of, how are you doing? I am doing very well, thank you for asking. My channel is growing stronger than it ever has before. I have a bigger fire in my heart than I've ever had before when it comes to motivation to make content, and I have more ideas for upcoming projects than I could ever know what to do with. And it's all thanks to you for deciding to check out my channel and subscribe to see what else I have in store. The future's looking bright, folks, and I want to thank you all for sticking around and showing interest in what else I'm going to make in the future. And that brings us to the end of my 10,000 subscriber Q&A video. Thank you all so much for the questions. My voice is dead now. I've been recording for 3 hours and 21 minutes. I don't know how long the video is going to end up being, but hopefully shorter than this. But I hope it's going to be shorter than that. Yeah, thank you once again for all the questions. A lot of really great, interesting topics were brought up today. I had a lot of fun answering all of them, maybe offering you a little bit of insight into myself. But before I go, there is one more bonus question that was asked that I want to address really quickly before I wrap things up for today. Any updates on when the Incredibles 2 series is coming out? Well, I'm glad you decided to ask that question completely of your own volition, because I'm happy to say that you can expect part 1 of my Incredibles 2 series to release on Friday, August 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's been a long time coming. I've teased it for so long. You're probably sick of waiting. I understand. I feel that pain. I felt that pain right along with you, working on it very hard every single day, and we're almost there. We're almost ready to release. There is a release date that I can commit to now, so mark your calendars. I'm excited for you guys to be able to see this, and hopefully it lives up to your expectations, because I really don't want to disappoint people with this. I've been working on it for quite a while now. So yeah, hopefully that was a nice little surprise to cap off the Q&A video with, but with that, I do actually have to get going now. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something about me. Hopefully you found the answers to your questions satisfying. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. I was asked almost 200 questions for this Q&A. I tried to answer as many of them as I could, but if I didn't get to yours, I apologize. I did my best to answer all of them as comprehensively as I could. But that's all I have to say for now. Make sure to mark your calendars for the premiere of the Incredibles 2 series. Otherwise, I hope to see you all soon for whatever you decide to watch next. Goodbye.